This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Experience. The temperatures over here for this afternoon is 37 degrees Celsius, and our lions haven't moved since this morning. Let's go and have a look at what the temperatures are doing in some of the other properties. Good afternoon and welcome back to Pridelands. We are just about to start our bushwalk, but decided that we're going to quickly pop in with a vehicle at the area where we left the lions this morning. That's no surprise with the temperatures being 37 degrees Celsius, and they're precisely where we left them this morning. So my name is JP LaRue, and behind the camera we've got BK. So for those of you that are interested in the total number of lions that is in this pride at the moment, we managed to count 21 by the time that we left here this morning. There's a large amount of young cubs in this group from a number of different age groups. There's a few more of the cubs that are all scattered over around this area, all in the shade. What you'll notice is as the sun starts moving slightly further north and west, these animals will start moving and then just reposition as the shade starts being created on the opposite end of a tree. That's the only movement that you will see out of them for the next few hours. I always find it quite interesting when they do get up, they barely will move a meter and then just simply flop down on top of somebody else. What I will never be able to understand is that in incredible heat conditions like this, that lions will go and lie right on top of one another. I can't think of it being comfortable. So these lions will probably only start going active roughly an hour to 2 hours after the sun is set, especially on a warm day like this, as that they don't want to waste any unnecessary energy by trying to move in the heat. I would think that their plan would be to start following up on the buffalo that they left this morning, as they already wounded one of the buffalo, and then we could see that one of the cows that are pregnant has a few claw marks on the back of her buttocks, as well as a bite mark very close to the reproductive areas, as they most likely tried to drag it down. It's obvious that the buffalo has fought back and drove the lions off, but I'm sure they would like to try again. Just to give you a rough plan, what we'll be doing from here is once we've viewed them for a short while, we'll be going to one of the dams for this afternoon, and then we'll start our walk from there. We'll most likely be sitting around the dam for quite a while as the temperatures are quite hot, and we would rather like to try and get the animals to come towards us and come and drink than that we go and unnecessarily try and find them in the middle of the heat of the day. I'm sure these guys will also be heading to one of the dams close by for a drink later on this afternoon. Once the sun has set, what we often find as well is once lions have often eaten, that they will go to water holes as well. So the first thing I normally look for when I do find a pride of lions is to assess if they actually have eaten or not, because that will assist me in terms of determining where they will be heading next. So far, the stomachs were all looking empty when we did look at it earlier on this morning. There's a few things of interest. What we can point out with a number of lions, if we do pan in on the noses, you'll see that the noses of the adults are incredibly dark in color, while the younger individuals have more pink on their noses. The pink will progressively disappear as the lion comes close by to adulthood. We're going to hang around here a little bit longer in case anybody would like to give them another view, or if there's any questions that you have about lions that you would like us to answer. And then we'll pop off to where we would like to start our walk. Let's go and see what the others are up to.
So it is a very, very hot day out here. It's an exciting start to the day as there are actually some animals out feeding. I'm sitting with a beautiful big male Nyala, a big Nyala bull in the shade. And he seems to be eating as much as he can in the hot weather. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari here this afternoon. Behind the camera we have Hippo. And we are hoping we don't melt today. But while we are doing that, we're going to be looking for some predators. We're going to be looking for, hopefully, quite a lot of elephants on a hot day around all of the water holes. And I think just appreciating the animals as they move from shade patch to shade patch this afternoon until it starts cooling down. I know we are going to be doing the same so that we don't melt. But just absolutely beautiful to be out here as hot as it is and see that animals are still carrying on. I am quite surprised that this Nyala bull is on his own. Normally you might find some females around as well, maybe some younger bulls. But I haven't seen any other movement in this area. But he is being very smart. He's actually feeding on an area where there is some nice fresh growth. We're very close to Vuyatela Dam. And so there's a lot of fresh greenery around here, whether it's little shoots on the trees or little shoots of grass on the floor. You can see he's got quite a long, beautiful shiny coat, but you can imagine his coat is actually quite thick, and with his hair being longer than a female's, he will actually struggle to cool down a little bit more than they would. He's also a completely different color. He's that dark, ashy grey-brown, as opposed to the red of a female. And so for him, it's even more important to move from shadow to shadow today. I have always loved Nyalas. I think that they are the most beautiful antelope. Even as he's hiding behind a guari bush. And I just think they are such unusual animals compared to all the other antelopes here. Compared to a lot of the other antelopes, just completely different in terms of coloration and size. Absolutely stunning. But I'm going to spend a bit more time with him here and just see what he gets up to as he moves to the next shadow. So I am just admiring his camouflage at the moment. Although he is a completely different color. He's actually moved off to the right a little. He's a completely different color to the greenery of the bushes, and yet somehow he still blends in so well. His movements are also quite slow and deliberate. He knows where he's going, and he's just going to get there slowly. You can see the wind has picked up quite a bit, so it is very, very nice to have the breeze when you're in the shade. Definitely feels a little bit more like 32 instead of 37 when you're in the shade with the breeze. But you can hear there are quite a few birds that are active, so let's just have a listen and see. It seems as though next to the drainage down here, the birds have not been as affected by the heat as the other animals have. A lot of Birchall starlings. I can hear some weavers way back in the distance as well. brown-headed parrot. That's quite unusual. Absolutely stunning. It just shows how well adapted these animals are, because we are struggling in the heat, you know, even though we're in the shade, and yet these animals are just unaffected. They carry on, they feed, they move around, and they survive. And it just seems like a normal day. Unbelievable. Definitely a good day to be out in the bush today.
Welcome back on Pridelands. We're still with the vehicle watching our lions and seeing what they're getting up to. As far as I knew, they're just going to rest. And that's what they're going to do, because they just simply want to conserve energy. It's actually quite interesting to sit and watch them and watch how they start moving as the sun has now come around that corner. A few of them has actually moved off and went to go and plonk themselves into other positions or right on top of other individuals. It's even more funny to watch them when their bellies are full and they're breathing so uncomfortably and they're lying on their backs with their feet up in the air. The reason why they often do that is when we do see them after a big meal doing that is purely because the stomach pushes against the diaphragm and they're battling to breathe. And therefore, because they're so uncomfortable, they have to lie on their backs. It's amazing how much they can eat. A full-grown adult lion, male lion, can approximately push away anywhere between 35 and 40 kilograms of meat with a single sitting. It's also amazing that their stomachs are so extendable. And quite often when they're emaciated, we'll see that it forms a very narrow waist. And then once the stomach is full, how quickly it can expand. As mentioned earlier, it's normally one of the first things that I do look at, because if we do want to look for lions and we do know that they made a kill, the next move is normally to go towards water, because they do need a large amount of water to actually assist with the digestion of the protein inside the stomach. These guys, they're not going to go anywhere, other than most likely going to look for this buffalo later on tonight once it's cooled down. There's a few things that we can point out while we are close by to these lions. There's the black markings behind the ears, which forms very important following mechanisms so that they can maintain group cohesion when they are hunting, as well as that the cubs can actually follow the adults when they are moving through this tawny coloured grass. Some of the other things we also see is that little black tip of a tail, which also performs the same function. One of the things that's always puzzled me is that there's a tiny little spur at the back of that tail. And up till now, nobody really knows what the function of that little spur is. There's a lot of myths and stories about that, but let's leave them to avoid any form of confusion. We were also discussing earlier on this morning how lions can communicate. There's a number of different ways that they can do so. One of them is by means of vocalizations. And for us as humans, we can hear them sometimes vocalizing up to some 8 kilometers away. Their hearing is still even better than ours, and they'll be able to probably hear one another over a good distance of approximately 12 or 15 kilometers, I would guess. We also know that they use feces as well as urine, as well as glands between the feet to also create scent, as well as on the face to mark objects. Sometimes you'll also see them deliberately clawing at trees to deposit that scent gland, but at the same time, they're also sharpening their claws. One of the things that I was noticing earlier, and this is just also for me always a reminder about how good their eyesight is how quickly they will pick up on vultures. And the lion that was closest to us actually glimpsed upwards to the sky and had a look. When I looked back, there was a vulture. It was only a speck on the horizon. Lions very quickly will actually focus on what vultures are doing, and quite often when they start circling and they start heading down towards the ground, lions will very rapidly move into that area, knowing that there's a potential meal. It also sometimes means that they might have to fight their way into a meal with another pride of lions. I've seen this happening a few times. I've also seen a male lion that got separated from a group of lions many years ago. It was few weeks that he didn't have a meal, and eventually he also saw a number of vultures moving in the distance and made his way into the area in the hope of finding a meal. Sadly for him, he was killed by 3 other big male lions. We also see that the vultures will also very keenly look at what lions are doing, A number of other birds also associated with them, and tawny eagle as well as bateleur, as two of those birds that has the ability of flying fairly low. They'll often pass over lions, check if they've got a kill, and then go and perch up on the tree. That will immediately start attracting the attention of more vultures to come into the area. We generally find that the majority of the vultures will actually perch up into the tree and wait for the lions to move off until the carcass has been finished. And one of the reasons why they do that is that the lions will chase them off. For some reason, one of the second smallest vulture species that we have in South Africa, which is known as a hooded vulture, tends to be tolerated with lions when they are on the ground. And they don't really bother them at the carcass, but what they are after is to feed on the scat of the lions, which still has a sufficient amount of protein for them inside it. I can't think of a worse meal myself. And there's nothing as worse as actually driving over lion dung, as that stench will sit underneath your wheel, and as you sit on the tracker seat, it will be permanently haunting you for the rest of the drive. We're going to move off and go to one of the dams and start our walk from there. Let's go and see what Tristan is up to.
Well, JP's with lions, we're with elephants that are having a whale of... They've just gotten out late, unfortunately. So they're just leaving the dam as we speak. Anyway, my name is Tristan. On camera I have Morgan. Did he get it on camera this time, Morgan?
Every time.
Well done.
Only once or twice not.
But like I say, unfortunately the herd looks like they've just finished up with their swim. You can see they're all dark and have had a good time in the waterhole. I was hoping that they would carry on swimming when we pull up, but it's often the case with swimming elephants. If you're not there before they start swimming, then when you arrive, the disturbance of the car is enough just to push them up and out, and they move on. So that's kind of what's happened, and I'm sure from here they're going to go straight into the Mulawati, to where the big trees are, try and just get some shade. It's extremely warm this afternoon, and so water and water holes are going to be the order of the day. Unfortunately, our elephants are going to move off. We're going to have to try and find another place to view them from, because otherwise we're going to lose them down in the drainage line. I think they're just going to go and try and find some shade and then settle in that shade. Now that they are nice and wet, with the wind blowing, it's going to be a nice cooling effect that takes place. So hopefully they should settle there. Alright, Morgan, let's see if we can try our luck and just get into a slightly better position. It's actually not the worst thing that they're moving on, because we're trying to find shade, but the shade is near non-existent in places. So where we were now, it's non-existent. I was feeling like we were getting a 3rd-degree burn parked there. Alright, so we'll try and get a reposition and get a better shot of those ellies, see where they head to.
The WildEarth channel now runs for 24 hours a day and is filled with exciting wildlife experiences for the whole family. In addition to our twice-daily live safaris from Africa, we launch Sea Forest. Free divers explore the great African kelp forest under the water in Cape Town, while naturalists on the surface explain what we are seeing in real time. Our Escape to Nature series features exceptional wildlife footage throughout the day, and here you can immerse yourself in the sights and sounds of nature. And finally, we are launching a brand new penguin experience later this month, where you can follow the lives of a group of African penguins daily and in real time. If you want to join in on these experiences, then head over to wildearth.tv/channel to see where you can watch. Escape to nature with WildEarth.
Civilizer just found some black rhino tracks. A mother with a calf. The calf tracks are so small. They're somewhere here in this area, but it's too dense to walk this way. So we're gonna walk around where it's not so dense. Let's hope we get lucky.
And sometimes you often drag their feet forward and deposit the scent mark, which is what they use to patrol their territory.
We managed to get a glimpse of the black rhino, but for safety reasons, of course, we held back and we walked a different way, but it was such a fantastic experience. We didn't just focus on the big things, because it's not all about the big things. We focused on army ants and lots of dung. Civilized did an incredible job, but it's up to the judges now.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
So this giraffe is actually coming down towards the Mulawati riverbed. It's a little drainage line that leads into twin dams. Seems as though it's moving from position to position feeding, and this is very normal because you can imagine for a giraffe, as it's feeding, each tree knows that it's being, I wouldn't say attacked, but eaten. And so it makes the leaves bitter, and then the animal must move. And it's actually quite a big male. He's not the biggest that I've seen, but he's definitely big for the condition that he's in, because he doesn't have any scarring. He's absolutely beautiful. And off he goes again. So he definitely looks like he's moving himself around from tree to tree throughout this riverbed. And that is pretty much going to be the rest of his afternoon, trying to find some shade, trying to find some food, and moving around. Stunning. All right, I think I'm going to leave him since he has decided to go behind the trees. All right, while I carry on towards the dam, I'm going to send you over to Tristan with a big herd.
Well, our Ellies are slowly walking past us at the moment, drifting off into the thickets and starting to feed. It looks like their direction is going to take them to Treehouse Dam, so if we give them a little bit of time and do maybe a loop around, we should arrive there pretty close to the time that they get there as well, and that would hopefully mean that we get them swimming again. It would be nice if we did. Ellies in this kind of heat are not going to be adverse to swimming a few times in one day. It's so warm that to cool down, they'll do it multiple times. But it surprises me that they didn't go into the Mulawati. I thought they were going to drop in and get under the big jackalberries and scotias and leadwoods and just enjoy the nice, relaxed nice shade actually. But instead they have decided into this block they're going to go, and that area is going to be a lot hotter than where they were heading if they went into the Mulawati. Hello, girl. Oh, she looks quite heavily pregnant at the moment. As you can see, the sky is white hot at the moment. You know it's hot when you look kind of westwards, and at this time of the day when it's midday the sky is white. Then you know there's some warmth raining down. Morgan, what do you reckon, guesstimate, of when these guys will arrive at Treehouse Dam? You got to make a call. You're about to faint. Don't worry, Morgan. We'll keep you alive somehow.
Great, thank you.
We've got we've got things that we can set fire to. I mean, that's your speciality, so we'll be able to.
That'll help with the heat.
It won't help with the heat, but it'll certainly shock you awake. What do you reckon? I reckon I'm gonna say 4:45. They're going to arrive there. Actually, I might be wrong. Actually, 3:30. That's the time they're going to arrive at Treehouse Dam. We'll aim to be at Treehouse Dam at around 3:30, and let's see what we get. Maybe they'll arrive there. You can see they're slowing down now, though, as they're starting to feed. So the movement is going to slow right down. You might find they also find a little shady area and spend some time feeding there. So it could be a little bit longer. I don't know. 30 to 40 minutes, I reckon, is what I'm going to go with. You have to pick a number, Morgan. You can't sit on the fence. Don't be a fence sitter.
What time did you say? 4:45?
No, I said 3:30.
It's 4:15.
4:15. Oh, that's a long time, eh? It's an hour and 10 minutes from now. It's a bold move, Morgan, but you're a bold man.
Time for me to not be unconscious.
Time for you to be not unconscious. Okay, perfect. So I'll have to get Morgan into the shade at some point. Otherwise, everybody's going to think that I'm punishing him again because he's died of heat exposure. Leopard lover. So yes, generally high temperatures and winds are always preceding rain. So in 2016 when we had the drought, this is what we would get for just day in, day out, day in, day out. And we never got the rain, but there's rain forecast, not tomorrow. Tomorrow evening. So starting at like 11 o'clock tomorrow night and then into Thursday, I think it is. It's tomorrow Wednesday, Morgan? I think so, yeah. I think tomorrow's Wednesday. Into Thursday, so... But it's not a lot of rain. When we talk rain here, what we're talking about is storms that will bring in 100, 100 would be a big storm, but 200 is like a crazy one. Millimeters of rain. I think their forecast for this little batch of rain that's coming in is like 8 mils, which would be enough to green the whole place up, but certainly won't be enough to fill up any of the little wallows or anything like that for any substantial period of time. But what we'll find is we'll probably get multiple days of like this where we're going to get hot, then cold with a little bit of rain, and eventually it builds up to the point where it just breaks into one big thunderstorm. We kind of get those downpours and everything fills up and goes green and it's all good. But also with weather out here, it can change so quickly. It can go from, getting 8 mils of rain to we're not getting anything. So we'll just wait and see what happens tomorrow. But I suspect that we will get some respite from the heat. They say tomorrow at about lunchtime we should be at about 31 degrees, which will be already like 6 degrees cooler than today. And the following day, I think the maximum is only 19. So it's a massive, massive, massive change. It does sound nice when you're sitting like this, but it's not going to be nice, Morgan? The rain roof, exactly. All right, we're going to go do a little bit of adventuring, see what else we can find, and then we'll make our way towards Treehouse just now, see if we can catch these guys swimming, and we'll see who was right or wrong in the time guess.
So I've come down to cross the little drainage line, and there is a beautiful little pair of Steenbok that are resting in the shade. And so that it must be an incredibly hot day to see these lying down together in the shade of the riverbed. Steenbok are incredible antelopes to watch. They hardly ever sit still. And they're fiercely territorial too, so this is probably one of the central spots in their territory. This pair together, they'll be monogamous, so they'll live together. And this is most likely one of the most comfortable shaded positions in the middle of their territory. So in fact, I saw this female in this spot, but on the opposite side of the riverbank yesterday. And she was lying in the shade, but the male wasn't anywhere to be seen. And so I'm very, very happy that he's back with her. It is nice to see them together. She does look like she might be pregnant. She's got quite a rounded belly if you have a look there, especially that white section. She really does have quite a rounded belly. So at some point, Mr. and Mrs. Steenbok might have a little lamb running around. So what you will also notice here, which is something that is quite specific to Steenbok, is that the female, who's the one on the right, doesn't have horns. The male's the one on the left, he has horns, but the female is bigger than the male. And this is actually the general way that it goes, or the norm with Steenbok in particular, that the female is slightly bigger than the male. Very, very strange adaptation, and it could be because of the small size. She might need to be a little bit larger in order to carry the baby to full term of 7 months of pregnancy. So often in the mornings you'll actually find Steenbok down here along the rivers. Carlisle, yes, they are very sweet. This is actually, there's only 3 very small species of antelope that you'll find here. One is the Steenbok, which is very small. The one is the duiker, which is a similar size but a little bit chunkier. And then the other is the klipspringer. And those are the 3 smallest antelope species we get here. So very, very sweet to see, and very nice to know that they are monogamous and they do stick together. And you'll constantly find them in each other's company. Even if they're not right next to each other, they want to be able to see each other or hear each other within their territory. But it's actually very apt that they're lying down in the soft sand of the riverbed. I think I would be doing that too if I was out here trying to hide from the sun. It's a great place to sit and relax. But it's also wonderful for them because they're very, very good diggers. And so they look for sandy spots to dig up food. And so the riverbed is actually a perfect spot for, as it gets a little bit cooler later, they might want to get up and start digging along the banks of the riverbed for things like tubers and things like that they would find underground, even bulbs to eat. Steenbok will eat pretty much any plant matter that they can find. And so they are very well adapted. Because they're so small, they don't need to herd. They can run just as fast on their own. And so they've got really nice little niche that they live in within the ecosystem. I don't know if you know this, but it's one of my favorite things about a Steenbok. I think it is unreal. But they bury their poop. Hillary, a newborn Steenbok would be absolutely tiny. So, I mean, at the shoulder, a female, which is bigger than the male, would be about 1/2 meter tall, just over 50 centimeters. And she'll weigh probably 12 to 13 kilograms, where a male would weigh around 11 kilograms. So a little baby Steenbok, I should imagine, doesn't even weigh 1/2 kilogram. I'm sure it's very, very small, but I'll see if I can find an exact number for you and let you know. I've seen a newborn Steenbok once, and I'm pretty sure I could have fitted it into a margarine or a butter tub. It was so tiny. Really, really small. Kind of could have picked it up with one hand, I guess, if you want to put it into that kind of size bracket. About the same size as my mom's dogs at home. Tiny little things. But definitely one of my favorite things about these is how sneaky they are. They're so good at escaping predators and hiding. They can sit completely still in an open area and you won't notice them. And because they're solitary and because they're a really good snack size for a predator, any predator could take them, even some of the large raptors, like a martial eagle, for example. They actually want to make sure that they cover their trail. And so when they want to poop, they dig a little hole. It looks like a funnel in the sand. They'll then defecate into that little funnel and they actually cover it back up with sand like a cat. And that's so that they can cover their tracks. Even though those little latrine sites or the toilet sites are actually buried for scent, they do actually still play a role in territorial marking. So these two will defend their territory. They'll have these little latrine sites on the edges of the boundary as well. And that'll also help them know who lives where. There are actually some dwarf mongooses that are running through the background, just crossing the river. I'm definitely going to spend a little bit more time with them, especially now that there are some dwarf mongooses running through the background, and just see what they get up to. It seems as though it is a very, very peaceful afternoon down here in the riverbed. I think I definitely agree. It might be time to set up a little camping station in the sand. I'm actually watching because there were some dwarf mongooses approaching them from behind, but they seem to have gone into hiding in the thickets. It'll be very interesting to see if they come back out and if they come any closer. So it is actually quite common to see things like mongooses following antelopes around, or antelopes following mongooses. And very similarly with baboons, you might find impalas or nyalas following baboons around to take any scraps of fruits and things that they get from the trees. Isn't it amazing to see how relaxed they are down here in the riverbed? There is a very, very nice breeze coming through, so I can definitely understand this shaded position being the place to be this afternoon. The riverbed's actually almost funneling the breeze along it, so it's actually better than being up on the banks, I'd say. Interestingly as well, there actually are hardly any birds calling in this section. And that's probably because there aren't as many big trees in this particular section or stretch of the riverbed, where further up and down there are. I always love spending time, especially with Steenbok and klipspringers. It's always very, very nice to watch and just see how they're doing.
Well, we had another group of elephants coming towards Twin Dams, but they ran away. Don't know why. Just they scared of you, Morgan. They saw your buff, the guns there, and they were like, no, we can't deal with this guy. It's too big and powerful for us. 100% what happened there. There's a giraffe in front of us, though. Why is everything walking away from us today? I'm struggling with keeping anything in one place. I suppose that's why the heat, they would have just been wanting to try and find shade and then just chill there. But even this giraffe is kind of moving away from us pretty quickly. Oh, you're right there, Morgan. There's a lot of huffing and puffing going on in the back.
I'm good. It is like 87 degrees.
87? It's about 50 degrees too hot, but unless we're talking Fahrenheit, and then in which case it's still not right. Yes. If it was 87 degrees, we'd be dead, both of us. What are you trying to say? The giraffe's gone. Okay, fair enough. All right, let's try and catch up with it. We'll try and see where, if we can get another view. He wants to be back so by the time we get round, it might be gone. Oof. Luckily it's not humid yet. It's just like that hot, dry heat at the moment. Alrighty, I'm gonna try and see if we can slowly start heading towards Treehouse. Looks like that herd is heading up that way and we need to be there in 15 minutes. And so in the meantime, let's send you across to, well, a prize that you guys can win if you join the Explorers program. And it's all buffalo.
If you are a Wild Earth explorer, then we are excited to announce that there is another unique prize for you to win. Sign up to be an explorer before the 16th of October 2021, and you and a friend could be heading off to an eco-training ranger experience. This 2-night opportunity offers a living and learning adventure where you will combine seeing incredible nature with gaining knowledge on how animals live in the wild. You will approach dangerous game on foot, learn how to track, do some 4x4 driving, and have an exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team behind the scenes on the live show. After each action-packed day, you will relax around the campfire and listen to the nighttime choir of animal sounds before you drift off to sleep. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. For those of you that are keen on winning that prize, to join us at Eco Training, to come and learn more about the bush, the bees, the birds, tracks and everything else that we can tell you about, please join us on Wild Earth Explorer and go and read up a little bit more on that. We would love to see you out here. Meanwhile, we're busy watching green heron, which is one of the smaller heron species over here, also known as a greenback or striated heron. I often watch this little guy around the water here, and quite often he'll stand motionless, waiting for a fish to come into striking distance. One of the unique strategies that they also often follow is actually to take little food particles or feathers and actually throw that in the water to attract fish within striking distance and then catch them. We also quite often see some of the larger heron species over here, such as grey heron. They're also quite patient. They tend to also stand quite often on the edge of the water and then wait for fish to come into striking distance. The majority of the other smaller species of herons also will employ a number of different strategies. One of my favourite is little egret with its little yellow feet, little heron with its little feet, yellow feet that will actually dangle that in the water to attract fish within striking distance. Some of the smaller species will also actively pursue small little fish, and then some will also use their wings by folding it over their heads to create shade to attract fish underneath there and then catch it. A few interesting things that we also find in the water, just directly towards the left of where we left that heron. There's also some Egyptian geese. They were earlier disturbed by a bird of prey that was coming over. I can see the bird, but although it's very, very hard to find that bird of prey with a camera, we're not going to scan on him. Hopefully in the moment he'll come out a little bit closer. It seems as if he's been bothering a number of the different birds around here. Here he comes. It's just flying over the water now, coming towards us. It was also upsetting the squirrels. It was very quickly alarming to his presence. It's one of the Wahlberg's eagles that's been come back in the last few weeks. One of the bird species that migrates almost 6,000 kilometers into southern Africa. These are intra-African migrants, so they only migrate within Africa, unlike many of the other species of birds, which is known as palearctic migrants, which some of them will actually migrate distances of up to 10 to 12,000 kilometers into southern Africa. For those of you who joined us for the first time, there's a few easy ways of actually identifying Wahlberg's eagles. They're actually fairly small eagles, fairly straight wings, and fairly straight square-shaped tail when the tail is closed. However, they do trick you quite often when they do fan the tail. So we were always taught that they look like two pieces of wood that has been nailed together and forms a cross. Also, when they are landing, you'll actually notice that they've got a neat little crest on the top of the head, which you can also use as an identification feature. As you notice that he's busy flying, the tips of his fingers are actually fanned. That creates a bigger surface area, and especially with heat, that enables them to actually use that heat, pockets of heat, to actually glide more efficiently from one little pocket of heat to the next pocket of heat. We also see that adaptation to birds of prey and other vultures as well, that has to migrate as well as use thermal pockets to actually glide from one to the next. It's a very energy effective way of flying. Flapping can also be an incredibly expensive way of flight if you are continuously flapping. We also see that the majority of birds of prey, birds like storks, they also have the same adaptation, all tend to migrate in daytime. It's getting a little bit hard to actually look at that Wahlberg's eagle as he's now fairly high up in the sky. We're just going to come back to the edge of the water. There's a little pied kingfisher sitting over here. Good afternoon, Finnegan, and welcome to the show. Yes, there are water-associated birds, just like that little grebe, as well as the pied kingfisher that we see over here. So generally also, if you are lost in the veld and you are looking for water, you can take note of water-associated birds such as ducks, geese and herons and the movement where they are going, and know that you can go and find water there too. Just to come back to the pied kingfisher that we have over here, it's the only black and white kingfisher that we have in South Africa, fairly easy one to identify. I also like the way that these little guys nest. They often will make holes in the side of sandbanks where they will then go and nest inside, which I also find particularly interesting, as that the previous season's young will quite often assist the parents to raise the current group of birds that have hatched that season. This is a strategy that is called cooperative breeding, and we also find quite often that there's a number of different species which will cooperatively breed, and there's also variations within cooperative breeding. Some species can raise the chicks on their own and don't really need the helpers, but it does assist in raising the chicks. And then other species such as the helmet shrikes as well as southern ground hornbills are entirely dependent on those helpers to ensure the success of raising the chicks. So we're going to sit in here for quite a while still, and hopefully there's some more birds coming in and out to come and have a drink as well as trying to fish. It's quite warm, so 37 degrees Celsius, which makes walking very uncomfortable. So it's better to sit for us over here and wait for the birds to come to, animals to come to us. Good afternoon and welcome to the show, Victim of Nature. With regards to your question, what is the difference between a hawk and an eagle? So generally eagles are much larger, and hawks are generally a term that's used to describe the genus of Buteo, which we refer to as buzzards in South Africa. So there's also a variation in what is an eagle and what is a true eagle. However, it's a little bit of an arbitrary term, and it's not really recognized by scientists, as that they do go more on taxonomy based on DNA classification. And quite often that answer to that is that true eagles are feathered all the way down to the feet, while the non-true eagles are not feathered all the way down to the feet. There was also an argument a few years ago that I was actually asked by a number of people when it came to fish eagle, And I said it's not an eagle, and the reality is it is actually a kite, and it's taxonomically closer, relying to a species such as a yellow-billed or black-shouldered kite.
Well, we're just getting to Treehouse Dam now. We're a little early. That's okay. We'll see if we can just park in some shade and see if anything comes our way. I can see one elephant in the distance. So maybe, just maybe, it will come down. There's also a little Steenbok at Treehouse. Just want to try and find some shade, because otherwise, whew, Morgan's going to start complaining, and then, you know, then it's all... It's always you, Morgan. Definitely you, buddy. It's not... Me? Complain? Never, bud. Why would I complain? About what, exactly? I mean, this is not really shade, but we'll... Look, I'll try to put you in the one little ounce of shade that there is. Hold on. Everybody, I have to reverse now, because Morgan's not in the shade.
Shade.
There we go. Look, I can see your shadow from here. You're in the shade. Oh, where did the Steenbok go? I was too loud. I think it was you. Steenbok heard that you were complaining and decided to go away. Anyway, like I said, there was an elephant that was on its way here, so I thought we'd just come and park off this side for now. Hopefully they'll come in and they'll start to have a little drink at Treehouse Dam. There's not very much else that is lurking, which is so surprising, because Treehouse Dam has just been a hive of activity for Morgan and I. Morgan?
Yeah.
Not even a starling this morning, or this afternoon. Carrie, that's actually a very interesting question. I've honestly never measured the temperature of the water. So I don't know how warm the water bodies get, but I would expect the size of the water body to have a direct correlation to its temperature and how much it changes throughout the day. You know, small little puddles and things like that would probably heat up quite fast, whereas the larger water bodies, so something like Gari Dam or even Buffelshoek Dam, I think that water will stay cooler for much longer. That's maybe why also with the elephants is that they disturb that surface water, just kind of mix up and get some cooler water from below, shove their trunk down a little bit. Maybe that's part and parcel of why they do it. I can see that elephant in the background, but it doesn't look like it's coming here anymore, Morgan. Maybe it's part of the Steenbok family. It's just with the same school of thought, is that we're too loud and it's not going to come down to its dam. I think if we're just patient around water today, though, things will happen. It's warm enough that it should drive any animal that's even remotely close to water to get to it and go and drink. Obviously cats, not so much now, but late afternoon. Now I would expect to see a lot of Impala, Nyala, kudu, elephant, all coming down towards water. It's a shame we don't have our buffalo herd. Oh, there's our Steenbok. It didn't run away. You see, you sold me out here, Morgan. It made me feel like there was nothing at Treehouse Dam, but there's like the most exhilarating sighting we've had in 2 weeks here. Is it a male or a female? I don't have a monitor, everybody, so I have no idea what Morgan's pointing to half the time. Which...
I don't know, this one is quite small, but I can just see like an eye.
You can just see an eye. All right, everybody. You know, you can't trust anyone to do the job these days. You got to do it yourself. I'm joking, Morgan. Don't worry. Let's have a look. Are you a boy or are you a girl? It is a boy, look at that. It's got little spiky horns. It's a fine looking fella, this one. Nice big horns for a Steenbok.
Another nice camouflage shot.
Exactly, camouflage shots is how we roll, Morgan. This is our signature move, is something behind the vegetation. We don't do things out in the open. You should know that by now. It's having a good little feed though, the Steenbok. Some little green shoots that are coming off of that bush willow stand there. It's cute little animals when they're feeding. Alright, well, we'll sit with the Steenbok for a little bit. We'll see if these ellies come in. We obviously have a bet of time, and so it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for them to get you.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
We're in the center of the reserve. It's a much more open area, so a completely different experience. It's also in the afternoon, so just a little bit hot, shall we say. We're following some lion tracks, and then we found the scat of a lion cub. So we didn't see the lions, but we decided to leave the area. It was getting a bit too dense and a bit too thick. So we've come all the way down to the water hole to have a little break, and then we're going to keep walking and see what else we can find. And TJ himself actually reminded us at the start of the walk that when you're on the vehicle, it's all about observing. But when you're on a walk, it's all about immersing yourself in nature, being part of the ecosystem. And that's exactly what happened today.
This is a battle of two great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth.
So I have come up to the northeastern corner of Djuma Private Game Reserve. I'm sitting at a dam called Buffelshoek Dam, and I figured it's a great way to spend a little bit of the heat of the afternoon just having a look if anything's coming down to drink. So far there seem to be a few impalas that have moved around a bit on the bank. There's also quite a few fork-tailed drongos and other birds around. But just, oh wow, just absolutely stunning to be sitting here. You can imagine waterholes like this are the hub of wildlife and survival in the bush. There are 4 resident hippos that live here, but I cannot for the life of me find them. I don't know if they're just underwater or if, you know, maybe they're in a slightly different section that I can't see, maybe a little bit around the corner. Maybe they've moved. But on a hot day like today, this is the only way that a hippo will survive, is to be in the water hole. See this beautiful big dead tree that was pushed over by elephants. It's very, very dead, so I think this was pushed over quite a while ago. Probably a good few years ago. But isn't it wonderful to sit here and just listen to the sounds of the dam? It is wonderful to be able to listen to all of the ambience around here, just a bit of, background noise of the birds as they're moving through the drainage lines, and just appreciate how lovely it is. It's also one of the calmest days that I've seen on the dam itself. The breeze is very gentle. It hasn't been a gale force wind like in the last 10 days. So it is absolutely wonderful to see it so peaceful. I am hoping that later on in the day the wild dogs actually come down towards this dam. They were last seen further north from here, but they seem to be moving in circles. So they seem to go north and then come back south, and they know where all the main water holes are. And I'd be very, very happy to find some wild dogs drinking and swimming here tonight, cooling off. That being said though, all of the predators are probably going to be very, very flat for the rest of the day until at least maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock they might start moving around, and that's because it is unbelievably hot. I would say we're actually higher than 37 degrees Celsius. I'd say it's maybe closer to 38 or 39. It is incredibly hot. So you can imagine the predators are not going to have much energy today. Roger, unfortunately, in the case of a drought, hippos have a really, really tough time. Probably tougher than most of the other animals. And that's because they have to have water to survive. Hippos have a very hypersensitive skin. It's very prone to sunburn and dehydration. And so it is essential that a hippo is in the water during the day. When there's a drought and these dams start drying out, the first to leave would actually be the females that have calves, because their main priority is keeping the calf alive. So they will walk kilometers and kilometers overnight to go and find a new water hole that they can use to survive. The males will actually stay in these water holes until they are pretty much just a dried up mud wallow, because the males are so territorial. They can kill each other over a dam. And so what normally ends up happening is the males will be the last to stay, and then as it dries more and more to the point of desperation, they would actually have to move, try and find an unoccupied dam or water hole or river, and if it's occupied, they might have to fight for it. They might get injured, they might die. Unfortunately, what happens quite a lot is by the time it gets to that point where the females have left, the male is now getting desperate and he has to leave. A lot of the time what happens is he'll either die in the fighting or get so severely injured that he dies of infection, or he'll walk so far trying to find an unoccupied dam so he doesn't have to fight that he'll end up dying of dehydration. So it is a very, very scary time for hippos. They obviously have a much higher death rate during droughts than a lot of the other animals because of this, because water is scarce and they are fiercely territorial. I have actually seen, there used to be a hippo at Ngala while I was there, that in the drought, because the other dams were occupied, he actually used to go and lie in the riverbeds in the sand, trying to find a shady spot during the day because he didn't have water to go and cover himself in. And so it was quite a dire situation for him. But it is a very interesting time for hippos because it really tests their boundaries and their dynamics, and it shows how fiercely territorial they are. So I would imagine as the afternoon goes on here, we're going to have a lot more animals coming down on the far ridge where that tall dead tree is in the background. Up there and all the way up to the left, I can see bits of movement. I can see some kudus, I can see some impalas that are slowly moving down towards the waterhole. So I'm sure as it keeps getting hotter until about 4:30, 5 o'clock, this dam is going to keep getting busier and busier until the predators start moving around. What is really nice about these hot days is we do get to do things like this where we can sit and watch movements at a waterhole. And because the predators are probably still flat sleeping, it almost gives you a chance to really go and have a look and appreciate some of the smaller things again. Because I think a lot of the time the smaller things can be overlooked. And so on a hot day like today, you can really appreciate the greenery and the flowers and the birds and the smaller things like mongooses and Steenbok, because they might be the most active until later. Susan, it is very calm here. I wish that you were sitting here in the shade with myself and Impala. It is really beautiful. The breeze is blowing straight towards us. And just kind of picking up in the little quiet time that we're sitting here in the same position, you can pick up on all the little movements of things around you and really have a look at some of the small things. So it really is stunning. It sounds like the birds aren't calling as loudly anymore. But let's maybe just have a little quiet minute and just take in the scenery. We might see some of those impalas and kudu coming down from the back of the dam just now. Oh my goodness, that's my first cicada of the season. I can hear cicadas calling. Butterflies around as well. That high-pitched hum that you can hear in the background, that's cicadas. So we've now gotten to the turning point of the season where it's hot enough that the cicadas are coming out. This is a true African summer starting. See some impalas slowly starting to come down. Probably seems a bit strange to say, but I'm sure the herbivores almost breathe a sigh of relief on a day like today, because there's very little chance a predator is going to be moving. Oh my goodness, there's a pied wagtail. Still some Birchall starlings in the background. It seems that there is actually a little bit of a scuffle happening between a blacksmith lapwing and two crested franklins. It keeps chasing them off, so I'm wondering if it has a nest somewhere on this bank. We're going to try and get it in the frame for you. It's right on the other side of the dam there. Very, very far in the distance, there's actually a pied wagtail there as well, so the black and white version of the wagtail. You can see a little bit of the movement on the opposite bank. So there's some crested franklins walking off to the left. In front is the blacksmith lapwing. And it actually has been chasing them around a little bit, so I should imagine it's either being competitive over food, or it might have a nest. See there, it might have a nest close by, and so it's just mobbing them to try and get them away. This is very typical behavior for a blacksmith lapwing. They are quite aggressive in their defenses. Fortunately, hiding a little bit behind the tree. Trying to see if I can see that pied wagtail again. That was beautiful. You probably found that little blacksmith lapwing is looking for tadpoles and insects and tiny little fish. It's actually wading through the water. A lot of the time blacksmith lapwings actually spend on the bank, so it shows you how hot it is. Still flabbergasted that there's no hippos here. I wonder where they will have gone to. There aren't any dams very, very close by. They've definitely moved. There have been no hippos that have come up to breathe. But I'm definitely going to stay here for another 5 or 10 minutes just to see if anything comes down. And then I'm going to head off on my bumble and see what else I can find.
We've got 4 minutes to go before Morgan's going to rub salt into the wounds for hours on end about how the elephants didn't arrive on time. Hence why you just reminded me right now. It's because it was off air, that's why. Anyway, we actually are still no sign of the eddies coming over. We can hear them, but they haven't arrived at the waterhole yet. I think they're still just feeding. They're about half an hour away. Yes, exactly. Perfect timing for you, Morgan. If they arrive in half an hour, I'll be upset. So I'm actually going to leave, so we will never know. Anyway, so like I said, we're being patient. Our Steenbok is still hanging around. I don't know where it is right now, but it was still in that clump just now. And there's the odd bird that's kind of in and out. But it's quiet. I think everything is just feeling a bit punished by the heat. So everything's just taking it easy, still in the shady areas. But what has happened is a bit of a breeze has picked up now. So there's a little bit more kind of coolness to the air rather than just that hot, dry heat that it was about an hour ago, which is nice. I think it'll be a nice evening tonight. I just got to get there first and stay out of the sun as much as possible. Not that we have much shade where we are right now, but, you know, we're trying. It would have been so perfect, as all, Morgan, if they'd come from the other side there. They would have come straight over the dam wall towards us, and along that edge we would have had perfect positioning for swimming. You can also see that there's no sign of our hippo today. He doesn't seem to be around, but that's because he's never here constantly. He's always in, out, in, out, in, out. He doesn't always stay in one place. It would have been nice to have had him here, because I always find when Ellie's swimming and there's a hippo around, it's just complete chaos. Hippo gets very bent out of shape about that. Alright, well, we'll sit here probably a little while longer. We certainly won't be here for half an hour, just so that we can make sure Morgan doesn't win the bet. But we'll see what comes down. Hopefully the eddies will arrive in the next 1 minute.
So I'm still sitting at Buffelshoek Dam. And there are actually some impalas that are just starting to come down and drink. That lapwing, you can see, has been sitting down on what looks like its nest, although I can't see clearly behind that log. Very well camouflaged, but it's actually just beautiful to see that there is a little bit more life coming down. It's just 2 male impalas, probably a bachelor herd. Maybe the others are still coming. I can see bits of movement through the grass. And you can see how they're standing really stretched out to try and get as much water in as possible, but without putting all of their body weight onto their front feet properly. Because if they need to be able to get away quickly, they need to be able to push backwards. That would be for something like crocodiles. I'd actually love to know if there are any crocodiles here. I don't think there have been any that have been seen here. Hammond, no, I don't think this water is safe for human consumption. I don't know if you've ever seen a hippo defecating or pooping, but it's not a very pleasant affair. So this is not flowing water, this is stagnant water. You should never really drink any stagnant water in nature. You should always look for free-flowing water, because as soon as water is stagnant like this, when it doesn't have a chance to move, it means that all of the bacteria will build up in this water hole. So the elephants will poop in here, the buffaloes will poop in here, animals will come and swim, wild dogs and hyenas, and you can imagine they carry a lot of bacteria from their diet. And so it's definitely not safe to drink. You'd probably get very, very sick. There might be a few people in the world who have an immune system strong enough to take it on, but I definitely wouldn't suggest it. It's not clean water at all, and I'm sure if you actually collected some of it in a glass vial, it would be green or brown in color. So if you're ever out in the wild and you need water to drink and you can't boil any, then I definitely suggest looking for a flowing stream of water, one that's flowing all the time, not one that's sitting still. I don't think you could pay me enough money in this world to drink some of this water. I think I'd even be nervous to swim in it. Because if you have any cuts or bruises or, anything where the bacteria can get in, I'm pretty sure your immune system would struggle to kick those bacteria out again. It was a very quick drink for those impalas. And that's pretty standard because you can imagine they are still nervous around water holes. I have finally spotted the partner lapwing. Lapwing. If my English will work today, that would be great. The other lapwing is actually sitting just in front of me. I don't know if we can get it. We're going to try. Just down here on the bank. There it is. So this is not the same one that was chasing the crested francolins. This might be the partner. You can see how it's wading through the edge of the water, pecking at food. Mrs. Jason, crested barbets don't actually have a season. They are here all year round. So at any point you'd be able to see crested barbets in the bush. Obviously, birds will become a lot more active in the summertime when there's more food, so you might see more of them. But they are actually here year-round, which is amazing because it's such a beautiful, colorful bird with a call that can literally go on for 5 minutes without a break. So it's just absolutely stunning to see. Probably one of the few birds that is so bright and colorful that is here completely year-round. You can hear the cicadas piping up again. So this is something that cicadas do only when it's hot. So you have to know it is very, very hot when they start coming out in spring. Cicada is a small insect. one of the, I would say, one of the flagship insects for Africa. You do find them on other continents as well, but specifically a very famous sound in the bush. So there's an impala that is coming down. It's actually the third one. It's not the same one as the first two. And it's coming down to have a drink, but it looks very nervous to come down those last few steps to the water. You can see there it's moving those ears constantly just to make sure that there isn't anything that is going to eat it as it comes down. You can actually hear the wind has picked up quite a lot, so I'm sure the animals are as grateful for that as we are, other than the fact that it is a bit of an advantage to the predators. That being said, I think it is so hot that even with the wind picking up, not many predators would be active. Maybe the odd leopard might be active today. I'm very happy to see that all of these impalas are in such good condition. Impalas are quite lucky. Of all of the antelopes and herbivores, they are probably the best at surviving through the dry periods because they've got what you would nickname a split lip. So instead of being like a kudu that mostly browses and eats leaves, instead of being, you know, something like a wildebeest that's a grazer and predominantly eats grass, when either of those dry up, you can imagine those animals would really, really struggle to get enough nutrition. Oh, I got a fright. Impalas have that characteristic split lip. It's not an actual split lip that you can see. It's just a name meaning they can eat grasses and leaves, so they are browsers and grazers combined. And so they, at least, you know, when the leaves run out for things like kudus struggle to digest grass. But the impalas can still eat grass, and when the grass dries up for things like zebras and wildebeest, they would struggle to digest leaves, and yet the impala can digest leaves. So it becomes a lot easier for them to find anything to eat in the drought. It's part of the reason why they are so successful and adaptable. Yeah, the cicadas have stopped now, but I'm sure they will start up again. One of my favorite sounds in the world. So I don't know if you actually know how a cicada produces its sound, but it's actually very different to every other insect. You can imagine crickets and katydids and grasshoppers have very specific ways of producing sound, normally with their legs or their wings, rubbing the back legs together, for example. Cicadas are very, very different. They actually have a little, it's almost like an empty chamber on either side of the chest cavity or the abdomen. And it's got a very thin membrane. It acts almost like a drum when you beat a drum. And so what they can do is they can contract and move that membrane, and they move it really, really fast, kind of as though you're beating on a drum, but without having to use a drumstick. And that produces the high-pitched sound that you can hear if you're ever in the bush and you hear a very, very high-pitched hum in the heat of the day. That's cicadas. And it's actually only the males that are making that noise. It's kind of like signaling where everybody is so that they can mate for the season. But it's just very interesting because it's not like the other insects in terms of how it produces its sounds, and it's by far the most predominant insect sound you will ever hear in the bush. It's actually incredible. Some of the cicada species, particularly an American one actually, can live 17 to 20 years as a nymph under the ground, and then comes out as an adult and reproduces. It's crazy. One of the longest insect life cycles that we know of. You can kind of just see there some of the impalas still moving off in the background. I did see some kudus that look like they might come down, but they're now hidden in the thickets. I think they're hiding from the sun. Makes a lot of sense on a day like today. Ah, there's some more bird calls starting up again. Seems as though when the wind picks up, the bird calls dip a little bit. Now that the breeze has kind of started to settle again, the birds are starting to call. So you can see why this is definitely one of my favorite things to do. Whenever you're in the bush and it's a hot day, never underestimate a dam. Never ever underestimate a water source. Because there's the cicadas again. You'll notice everything that you never noticed before, from the smallest insects to tracks to birds, mammals, sounds. There's always something happening. There you can see the blacksmith lapwing again. So definitely a good place to sit for a little while and just see what happens.
We had a very exciting start to our morning this morning. Today, it's our guided sunrise safari with Mike, and we started by looking at the moon through a telescope, which was incredible. It's been a very different drive from all the other ones, very interactive.
Your pigeal gland is something the Hippos have in common.
Hi. This morning's drive with Mike was thoroughly enjoyable. He really engaged us, but we also did some birding, and I managed to add a few new birds onto my list. Overall, every single experience with all the competitors has been really incredible, but it's up to the judges now.
Looks like it's a very difficult climb, because every time it tries to climb, the ground is breaking, so it slides down. But it's the only one. Look at that. That is the call of desperation with a cub. It's like, what are you doing, mommy? Oops. Oof.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
I love being a cam-up for WildEarth. The animals coming right up close to you, especially like lions. Sometimes you get nervous, but you have to go with the flow. My favorite animal to film is the elephant because of how big it is. But when it's really up close to you, it's one animal that you would say, I really respect you.
Well, my giraffe were drinking. They're just leaving, but I told you that the elephants were going to come here, Morgan. Why did you tell us Trias Dam? Morgan was arguing. I was saying we should just wait here and they'll come, and instead he said no, we must go to Trias Dam. I'm checking. That's not what happened at all. I don't know if this is the same herd or a different herd, but there's a herd of elephants arriving at Twin Dams. We came back this way because the elephants didn't come anywhere near Trias, and I went on a loop just to see if we could find them, and I couldn't even see them anywhere near there. So I said to Morgan, I think we both have gotten this horribly wrong. And I thought, well, let's just come back down here. There was two reasons for it. One is because I thought, you never know, maybe Ellie's will be around. There's quite a few giraffe here as well. You can see this one's got, actually looks like muddy legs. That's weird. Is it muddy legs or is it just the coloration? It's just the coloration. It's weird. Dark legs and the rest of the body's a lot lighter. But yeah, we kind of came down here for that reason. And the other reason was that where Thandi was moving today isn't actually that far from where I am right now. So I thought, you never know, maybe hanging around this area, the Mulawati, for the afternoon, maybe she makes an appearance and comes out to say hello. It was such a brief sighting of her this morning. It would be nice to get like a proper long sighting of her. We'll see. It's definitely eased off in terms of the temperature already. Here come the Ellies running in. I always love watching elephants approaching water. That bounce that they get as they come in is so joyful to watch. Doesn't look like a big group though, so it's not the same herd as what we saw earlier. They do look dark though, like they've been swimming somewhere. Maybe they were the ones that were at Trias Dam that we saw in the distance. You can see they're actually not even drinking, they're just trying to cool their bodies down. A lot of mud and water being thrown on the ears, particularly in the chest areas. That will drastically reduce their temperature rapidly, so that's why they start with that. And once they've cooled themselves, then maybe a drink of water after that. I'm hoping that they'll have a little swim though. Nice just to hear them splashing about. I don't know if you guys can hear it. The drink kind of dust cloud is being created in the water from the disturbance of the Ellie's feet. Must admit, if I was an elephant though, I'd be swimming in this dam 100% this afternoon. Well, that's very unnecessary to have a radio that loud. To give you a fright, Morgan?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Never.
Never. That's why you almost fell out the car.
Did not.
Oh, that was a while ago, sorry. What happened there anyway? Were you just leaning back and you almost fell?
What was the explosion?
No, the other one.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. That was just a moment.
Morgan had a moment where the one day he was just sitting and all of a sudden he just started leaning backwards and almost fell out the vehicle. Wasn't really paying attention too much as to what was going on.
Focusing on the lions.
Focusing on the lines. See, what a good cameraman you are, you know. So attentive to what you were shooting that you didn't even worry about your own personal safety.
Right.
We need more like you in this world, Morgan.
Someone else thinks that about too.
Why, who else was thinking that? Me. Morgan. One of a kind. We have lots of one of a kinds in this camp. Marcel, Morgan. Starts with all these M's.
Tristan's fastest name.
No, but Tristan's normal. That is complete nonsense. Nothing really normal about any of us that are out here. Time in the bush tends to cook all our brains. We just get a little funny. Something's being isolated, that's probably what it is. We've got two giraffe coming now that have got, the one's got the whitest hips in the world. It's almost like there's like partial leucism on the one's hips. So not the one that's on the dam wall itself, but the one just to the bottom left. Of course, you know, as I talk about it, it then turns and faces us. It was walking side on, you could see the hips quite nicely, and the nice sort of light coloration on the hip itself. So I don't know if it's, like I say, just a bit of partial leucism that it's got, or the hips are definitely very, very, very white and devoid of any sort of patterning on them. There's quite a number of giraffe bulls here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 bull giraffe that are here at the moment, which is quite cool. Anyway, from animals that are all coming towards water to animals that will love water and have to spend a lot of their time in water, except those ones are on the coast of South Africa. Penguins certainly look like they're going to be a lot of fun, so hopefully that will come to us soon and we'll be able to watch them going about their business. Now, our Ellies have just finished up and they are moving off again. I think it's the same herd that was swimming when we first got here, because I can see a whole bunch more in the top there coming down again. I think these ones just got very hot and decided we're going to just come down, cool off a little bit, go back and feed. And they'll just do that until such time as this heat dissipates. It's already much cooler than it was, you know, an hour and a half ago. It was relentless out here. At least now it feels like it's manageable. Morgan is still looking like a candle that's been melted on the back here. But
the bullying continues.
I'm not bullying you. I'm just saying that it's been warm. That's all. I mean, you're pushing a bead, aren't you? Morgan is also like me. When we say pushing a bead in South Africa, it's like when you're sweating, like a bead of sweat that comes out. So he's like me, and we're sitting with the sun directly in our face, so it's no wonder that we have that. But this giraffe hopefully is going to come down and drink. I doubt it will drink from where it is right now. It's quite a steep bank there. Oh my goodness. Sorry everybody, my head is in the way again. Am I out the way now?
I guess so.
You guess so. It's a yes or no answer, it's not a guess answer.
No, you're out the way.
I'm out the way, okay. Wonderful. But like I say, I don't think these giraffe will drink on that steep section. They're going to go around to where the Ellies were and they'll drink from there. But the one that I was talking about with the light coloured hip area is the one at the back. You can see it's almost devoid of any sort of pattern on those hips. Giraffe, you're going to fall forward into the water if you drink from there. Am must admit I would get the giggles if a giraffe tried to drink and went head first into the water. It would be quite funny. I mean, apart from the fact that it would probably drown, which wouldn't be funny, but just the initial thing of it falling in would have had some entertainment value. I wonder why I chose like the most undulating part and didn't just walk on the top part. Must admit, I do enjoy watching giraffe drink. It's as awkward as you can possibly imagine. I feel sorry for them because it's a process to be able to do this. But it is cool to watch how they kind of spread their legs. And you know it's hot when the giraffe are willing to drink in your presence. Most of the time, giraffe are pretty wary drinkers because they know how compromised they become at that point. So they typically don't really want to do it when cars are around. But when you're desperate, you're desperate. And so they do it. Nice with the ellies in the background as well. Awesome. It's peaceful, isn't it? So if the elephant's kind of in the back, the giraffe drinking, little go-away bird mouthing off in the background. What you notice though when they drink is how quickly that neck pops back up. Remember that these guys, unlike us who, when we're conscious and awake, hold our necks up, the way that their necks are designed is that the neck is actually at rest when it's dead straight like that. It's a physical thing that they're stretching it to get down. So when they actually stop drinking, it's like a little spring that pulls it back up. And you see it when you have a dead giraffe. If you take a dead giraffe's head and you pull it towards its chest and you let go, it's like a catapult. It just flicks back up. So it's a lot of effort that they go through to do this. Don't think that they particularly enjoy it, but when it's hot you got to find water and you got to drink at some point. Here come the ellies, they look like they're coming back again. Alright, well we'll sit here with these guys to see what happens when the eddies start to come down. Well, I think it's a good time just to listen to the sounds of nature as the animals mill about the waterhole. nice just to hear all the water splashing as these guys go about having a drink. So cool. Been fantastic to have so many elephants around of late, and hopefully long may it continue. They provide so much entertainment every day, especially in the warmth. Alright, well, we'll sit with these guys. Let's see, maybe something else comes down while we watch them drink.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. We're still sitting at Leopard Dam in the hope that there was going to come some animals coming to come and have a drink. It seems as if our strategy is failing us because it's so hot. Both myself and BK is also struggling to stay awake. We're actually looking like two little curry chain thrushes, nodding our heads up and down as if the heat is taking its toll. We're going to start taking a little bit of a walk from here, get a little bit of oxygen for our body and to our brains so that we can get a little bit of energy back in our system. But before we go, there's just a few things that we would like to point out. For the moment, the clouds are coming in fairly quickly and the weather is changing quite rapidly. And that's giving us a little bit more relief. A little bit earlier, the clouds that were in front of us were all cirrus clouds. And one of the cirrus clouds that we do find at this moment was cirrostratus, where it almost becomes like a complete layer. And the sun generally shows as a bright spot with a little halo around it. This is typical of warm front conditions, and warm fronts are always followed by cold fronts, which is good news. So tomorrow, the temperatures are definitely going to be considerably cooler. These cirrus clouds are actually quite high clouds, and they actually consist out of ice crystals, and they're formed when warm air gets pushed upward, when cold air actually moves underneath it. And those clouds are generally between some 6,000 and 12,000 meters in altitude. But as we pan with the camera towards the south, we'll see that there's also a buildup of cloud on the horizon, and these are mostly cumulus and cumulonimbus clouds. So clouds for us are incredibly important because they tell us about what the weather is going to do and what potential weather conditions we might experience within the next few hours. If we do see cumulonimbus clouds, those are the clouds that have quite tall clouds. They generally start low down on the ground, and they can sometimes be up to some 12,000 meters in altitude. So in the tropics and the equator, they can get up to 17,000 meters in altitude. Those clouds are generally the ones that bring lightning, thunder, and the potential of hail. So if you are guiding in areas where you're finding yourself in mountainous terrain, it's always important that under these weather conditions or cloud conditions to move your group out of that area, as lightning might be a risk for you and the group. Also, hail can be potentially a big risk for you and the group. But also in the low-felt area where there's a lot of drainage lines and areas where you can potentially get caught off guard and cut off from your vehicle, it's always important to avoid areas where that can happen when you see these clouds, because they also have the ability to bring a large amount of rain down within a very short period of time, leading to flash floods. Also with this type of clouds, when you are guiding in mountainous terrain, it's also important to not go and hide under cliff faces, as lightning can potentially dislodge rocks from that cliff face and endanger you and your group. There's a few ways that clouds are formed, and in this area what we find is that cloud actually forms when moisture starts coming into the air, and combined with heat it starts rising. At a specific point it's going to start cooling down and it's going to become visible as a cloud form. Up to that point it was only water vapor. So quite often you'll also notice that clouds have flat bases, and that is precisely where that dew point temperature takes place, where the cloud then gets converted from water vapor into a visible form. I really hope that it is going to rain, because if we do have some rain, it will really bring a lot of changes to the bush. Things will very rapidly start greening up, and the birds and insects will start breeding.
The Ellies just had a swim. They finished already now and have left. So yeah, I was hoping we'd get them before you guys, well, get them when you guys got here, but they're out already, I'm afraid, and busy moving off. It wasn't all of them, it was only about 3 of them that actually went in properly and covered themselves, and they're now heading towards the drainage line. I think, Morgan, let me turn you around quickly. Hey guys. So they often just go from here and then they go into the riverbed and just start to take it nice and easy in there. It's so nice to see big herds of ellies like this. And this is not even a massive herd. Just listen to the sounds of their skin scraping together. It's almost like this lead one is just trying to wait for all the little ones to cross over. Once all the little ones are through, then it will start to move. You see how that trunk is working now, trying to pick up scent. Yeah, they're moving through the grasses. I'm pretty sure that this one is waiting for all the members to cross the road and then it will start to move. So when the youngsters are going, there we go. It was just the one that was making sure everybody kind of got safely across, and then it itself came to join them. Isn't that amazing? Such intelligent creatures.
Okay.
Wrinkly greenie, it's an interesting question. I would imagine, so for me the answer would be yes. Purely based off the fact that elephants are so incredibly smart that I don't think that they would forget very easily who their, let's say, mother or sister was, and if they came across that herd later on in life, I'm pretty sure that they would understand that there's a connection there. But remember that that bond is severed over time. So when they, the first 12 years of their life, or 13, 14, 15 years of their life, they're with the mothers and the little ones, and then they start to go off on their own, and then they live a life where they're separated from those individuals for maybe 20, 30 years, which is more than they were with them. And so the kind of relationship and the nature of that relationship changes and evolves. And you'll find in an elephant, even though it might recognize that individual, if she's in heat, that drive to mate and to reproduce will probably outweigh any sort of attachment to that animal and recognition of that animal. At that point, it starts to become, well, this is an opportunity to spread my genetic, and therefore will try and actually do so rather than a situation where they kind of just greet and be like, oh, happy, nice to see you, family, and carry on. I think it's, at that point, they start to understand that they need to reproduce and find a mate rather than worry about family ties. Just want to go forward a bit. Was that an elephant that made that little snort? It didn't sound like it. It sounded a bit like a kind of waterbuck, wildebeest kind of. Is it a waterbuck? See, I'm clever here. Morgan? The waterbuck that are coming now. I don't even think we need to leave Treehouse today. Twin Dams today. Everything. We should go check Treehouse, just because this is just not enough action for us here. We need to go to the place where there's all the action. But yeah, we'll stay here for a little bit longer, because as we're leaving, just things are constantly arriving. There was a waterbuck. What did you do to it? Walked behind a bush. But that's your speciality, Morgan. You're supposed to. I can see the waterbuck from here. It's straight across. Where those two elephants are coming from?
Oh, that's another one.
Oh, that's another one.
That's bright.
Do I have to worry about getting you glasses now to read your pop-up book as well?
No, because I can't read.
You can't read, but the pictures, you look at pictures.
But it won't be bright when I look at pictures.
Won't be bright. But that's bad for your eyes. No wonder you haven't read. You need to. This is too bright. It'll be perfect light. Yeah? Okay. Why? Will you have a little headlamp or something? Oh, okay. Little reading light. On the books, okay. Do you have a little night light next to your bed as well, just in case? 100%. Are you scared of the dark?
Yeah. I never turn the lights on.
People are going to think that you are an absolute delinquent, you know that. Everybody's not, I mean, Morgan is not like this. He's far more intelligent than he's making himself sound. And as much as I give him a hard time about reading books and things like that, he's probably, well, he's quite well read and knows what he's doing. It's just a joke that we play. I'm pretty sure most of you must think he's just an utter reprobate and...
Then I just you bullying me.
I'm not even going to repeat that, so no one will know what you just said. I would never, Morgan. Never, ever. I'm all about lifting one up, not putting one down. Look at all the poo that these elephants left in the water. It's very rude. It's crazy. They just went to town here. They were in there for like 5 minutes and there's just balls everywhere. Anyway, we'll carry on sitting here, let the water back come down and those other two ellies. Like I say, hopefully we'll get lucky with Thandi making an appearance a little bit later.
RSA has a long history, over 90 years, of being involved and even pioneering aspects of the conservation sector in South Africa. Over that long history, we have realized that all of the issues that we are facing both locally and globally are due to human impact. Therefore, we need to concentrate on working with people, and that is what WESA does. What makes me passionate about the work that we do at WESA, and in particular the work that I engage in, is actually connecting with people. Currently the work that I'm working on is working with youth in a skills development program, and just to meet the youth and to hear their stories and to bring them opportunities that we hope will have some impact on their lives really, really fuels me to get up every morning. A huge shout out to the women that I work with, as well as to all the women that are contributing hugely within the environmental sector, both in South Africa and in the world.
The scribe here collected a dry grass, put it next to the water hole as the hippo walks down during the warm of the day to drink the water. When the hippo arrives, he saw quite a very nice grass, an area not to resist, to rest. And when the hippo went down to drink the water, and when finished the water, he just lied down on the grass. And then, that was the opportunity of the scrappy. You know what? Today is my day to pay the revenge.
There you go.
So it looks like we've got some of the bigger females of an elephant herd with some little calves that are down in the shade of the riverbed now. They've actually left the banks and they're actually standing down. It looks like, there's a broken tree above them. It looks like they might want to dig for roots, maybe to get some water. You can see it kind of broken over them there. But they could also just be looking for a little bit of fun or just some shade. This herd is very big. You can hear a lot of the feeding noises, a lot of breaking branches, a lot of bushes moving as they're walking through. So you can imagine when you're this big and you've got to move in some very small places, It's very dry at the moment, so everything that you brush past with such a thick, rough skin sounds much bigger than it is. So it can attract quite a lot of attention. So it is quite amazing how elephants can move without making a noise when they want to. They are very, very careful about where they place their steps and how they move. Here's some arrow-marked babblers in the background, chatting to each other in the brush. SC, absolutely. A big herd of elephants will disturb smaller animals in the grass, whether they are snakes, birds, lizards, even Steenbok, duiker, impalas. They will definitely disturb them. Especially, you know, a herd of this size, if you've got somewhere like 20 to 30 different elephants, you can get herds up to 100 elephants in some places. You can imagine they've got very, very big feet. They're walking along. As they're walking, they're feeding, so they're searching through the grass. They're moving bushes to the side. And so as they're going, there's a lot of activity. And that activity and the noise should be enough to move other animals off. But if they don't, you might actually find elephants will chase other animals away. The only advantage of this is for things like fork-tailed drongos, maybe Burchell starlings, that will actually follow the elephants around, looking for the insects that they disturb as well. So elephants are definitely, because they are such big animals, they will definitely disturb other creatures. And at the same time, that's actually one of the reasons, with their feeding habits and how big they are and how far they move, it's one of the reasons why they're known as basically like the biggest habitat constructor or manager in the bush, because they are the ones that shape the habitat out here with their feeding. So as much as they might disturb small animals moving through the bush, they actually create a lot of homes for small animals too, by shaping the environment, by shaping the habitat, pushing over trees, digging holes, all of those smaller things. They kind of balance it out. So there is a female here that looks very, very pregnant. You can see this big old cow. She looks very pregnant. Look how low her belly is hanging. She does look like an older cow. Her temples are a bit sunken in. She's got quite a large head as well. And I definitely think she's close to the end of her pregnancy. She's hanging very low. So very similar to humans, animals will do similar things. Their bodies will react in a certain way when they're going into labor, and in the few weeks before they go into labor as well. And animals are actually more in tune to this than humans are. But essentially what you'll see is her stomach is already hanging low, so the baby has started positioning. But as it goes on, getting closer and closer to labor, you'll see it also starts moving further back. So at some point she might not even be able to walk properly, because the baby will be sitting right at the back between her back legs, very low down. And it hasn't gotten to that stage yet. It's still in the middle, just hanging low. You can imagine how with a calf that size, the organs of the elephant are pushed all over the place. She'd have to try and house them higher up. It must be very tough to carry an elephant baby and birth an elephant baby, although I suppose it's relative for a female. But I can imagine it must be a very, very heavy experience for a female. But I'm going to leave them here feeding. I'm going to carry on down on my leopard search. And I'm going to send you over to Tristan, who actually has elephants at a waterhole.
Well, it seems like an elephant day. We literally cannot get away from them. We were just sitting here watching the waterbuck come down, and a whole nother group of elephants has arrived at Twin Dams. Not a big group, but definitely a group. And there's one that's about to come right past us. Hello, little Ellie. I think they're all part of the same herd. It's just they were a little bit split at some point. I wonder if this one's going to come down for a drink as well. Some that are just walking along the edge. A lot of these look like young males, which is quite typical to see the young males at the back of the group. Just going to keep quiet so you can hear the water as it drinks. Only when you hear water, you should hear the scraping of feet from the one elephant as well. How are you doing with your feet? Why? Would you like me to move? Is that what you're asking? Hold on, let's just move for this a little bit. All your friends went the other way, and the only one that's been obstinate enough on this man. Then the good news, I need to move. Not a graceful descent down the back of the dam wall. As you can see how deep the paths are at the moment from these guys walking here. Big ingrained pathways all around the dam. And a lot of it will have been of late in the last couple of weeks. It's been very, very warm and not a lot of water around, so it's pulling everybody this way. But I love how as quick as they come, they go. Sure, these guys will join the others that were here just now, and we'll end up in a situation where they kind of come together. But we'll probably do a little loop around just for a bit of change of scenery for a while and see what else we can find in the area. I haven't left just yet. I'm just waiting for the one cow to come past us. It's the last elephant in the group that's just sitting on the edge of the dam wall, so I don't want to start and give her a fright where she's standing at the moment. She's a little kind of compromised from an angle perspective, and there's sticks and twigs and all kinds of other nonsense at her feet, so I just want her to finish feeding and move, and then we can move as well. And we won't disrupt her too much. The problem is the direction the LEDs have travelled would be the direction that I think Thandi would have come from. So if they do bump into her, they might push her more south. There's another waterhole to the south on Little Gari. So it could very well be that that's what that could happen. Or where she'll go and drink. So let's hope that that isn't the case and that she rather comes this side. You might have heard a vehicle passing by. We're not very far from the boundary. Tundams is right on the edge of the boundary, so often get a lot of cars up and down, unfortunately. Clearly doesn't look like it's in a hurry, does it, Morgan? No. Looks a bit like our cameramen before drive when they're in the kitchen enjoying the aircon.
You're in that same kitchen.
I am indeed, Morgan. You're right. I am there with you.
You're the first one there and the last to leave.
First one there and the last to leave? Me? Never. I'm normally the last one there and the last to leave. Yeah. Definitely not the first. And Paul is always on time. Like, he's always there, gets his stuff done on the cars when he needs to be. The rest of us are a little tardy sometimes, which is not great. Anyway, talking about kitchen, this elephant is still feeding away. So I might just reverse back now that the ones behind me have moved on and decided to get out of the way. Means we can get around without disturbing her too much, which is kind of what I wanted. I didn't want to give her a little bit of trouble, so we'll carry on and see what we can find.
So I'm actually just a little bit further down the drainage line where I had the elephants. And as I came around the corner, there's this spotted hyena that's just lying in the shade, relaxing. It seems as though it's not too worried or bothered by the elephants. The elephants are actually moving on the bank on the left, so where the hyena is looking. That is where the elephants are currently moving. So it really does seem quite relaxed. And I think the elephants aren't too worried about the hyena either. They can definitely smell it because the wind swirls a little bit in these drainage lines. So they can smell the hyena, but they're not worried about it because it's just a hyena on its own. So I don't think that it is a threat to them at this point. But it does look very, very comfortable. It looks almost like it's lying like a spatchcock. It's got its legs out the back. Very, very relaxed on its stomach. This is quite a large hyena. I'm not sure which hyena it is and which clan it is from. But it is definitely quite a large hyena. From the size, I would say it might be a female. But it is quite tough to tell. Actually very interesting. A female will have spots from birth, but they'll fade as the hyena gets older and older. So the current temperature is still incredibly hot, so I think this hyena has probably actually been here all day, relaxing in the riverbed, other than the occasional time like now where it obviously has an insect or something bothering it and it needs to clean it off. But I think this hyena has been here all day, relaxing in the shade, probably just following the shade as it moves with the sun. A little bit of grooming. This is a good sign. A yawn is an even better sign. Those big teeth. Oh, and we've got some movement. Wow, look at the size of that belly. And I'm going to move a little bit forward so that we can get enough view of this hyena. Picky, sorry, I didn't quite get the name there. FC, if you could go with the name again of this hyena. Oh, heart. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. With a very, very, very full belly. Wow. And off it goes towards some more shade. So there were actually reports of Tundi in this area earlier. So I know Marips and Tundi were together this morning briefly, and then Tundi actually moved off. apparently she came towards the Molwati drainage line, which is the drainage line I'm in at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if the hyena is actually smelling Thandi or is aware that she has been in the area. And now that it's cooled off, maybe time to go and have a drink at the dam. We'll move off and see if she can find the leopard. And gone, just like that. Unreal. Well, I'm very, very happy that I got to get a glimpse of that hyena. That was unreal. Very, very, very big hyena. Right, on to the bumble we go. So I'm actually now approaching the southern boundary of Djuma. I'm going to be checking a little bit east towards the area where my ribs was this morning and see what I can find from there, because I think that it's been so hot that predators haven't really been moving until now. This is going to be quite the turn. Wendy has yet to fail me. I don't think she ever will. Alright, and we are on the cut line. With even more elephants up here, it is amazing to see how many elephants there are recently. Oh, and a giraffe. That's amazing. I just need to get myself back on track here. Oh, and she's clicked herself out. Let's see if we can have a look at those elephants and the giraffe together. Looks as though they are feeding underneath the tree. Oh, and the giraffe is moving off slowly. There you can see it in the background. There's just some elephants relaxing in the shade. I'm not going to spend too much time here. They are well hidden and I don't want to disturb them. So I'm going to keep going and hopefully I can find my ribs or Thandi.
Here we are. We are on an expedition. This is the expeditionary force. Behind me, we have seen Tlalamba. We are very excited.
It's day one of the annual South African Guide of the Year competition, and our first foot into this competition this morning is all about tracks and signs.
We're going to call you in one at a time. Just look at it, the information will be there.
Our 5 guides have been tasked by the judges at figuring out who is what is who, and where they go in the bush.
Either Franklin or guinea fowl, but because of the volume of other deposits in the area, we went with guinea fowl.
Detailing the surrounding that you need to look out for tracks. The details is very important.
I've seen something I've never seen here before. Look at these cubs. One is crossing the river. It's being washed away, unfortunately, but I'm sure the mother is going to save her. Look at that. How beautiful. Look at that. One crossing, 2 to go.
Welcome back. We're still with our Hammerkop and watching him while he's busy feeding and disturbing little platanas. I hope that he's going to catch one very soon, as it's quite interesting to watch him while he's feeding. The other birds in this pool that also specializes in feeding on these platanas seems to be the pied kingfisher as well as our little grebe. I never really knew up to a few weeks ago that little grebes do feed on platanas, as it's the first time that I've ever noticed that they feed on these. Coming back to our Hammerkop, we were just discussing a little bit earlier on how this bird is quite often associated with a number of cultural beliefs, or African cultural beliefs. And one of it is associated with vanity, because they often stand dead still on the edge of the water, staring into the water to see what they can feed on. We also find that it's believed that if you bring harm to the Hammerkop, that it will also bring lightning to destroy your house. The Hammerkop is still flying over the water. Sometimes when there's deep dams, they will actually fly over the water, dip and catch frogs as well as fish as well. I've also noticed quite often where there's weirs, where fish will jump up, that they will wait at the edge of a weir and catch small little fish, as that they will then try and make their way up onto the edge of that weir to make their way up the stream. For those of you that are familiar with a nest, they build a fairly large dome-shaped nest in the fork of a tree, and they will make the nest in the center of that mass of sticks, and it seems that they're always continuously adding more and more sticks to that nest. We also see that they will quite often decorate those nests, and that might be with anything from bones as well as things like pieces of plastic. And I can remember a few years ago I was reading an article about one that was making a nest close by to a hospital, where it was using plasters and bandages to also decorate the nest. Sometimes I'm quite curious why they do go to such a great length of doing some interior decorating to make it look nice. The other birds that we have at the edge of the water, on the opposite side, is Egyptian geese that are still busy feeding on the edge there. This pair has been here now for a few weeks, and they've come into the area after the other pair with the chicks have left. I've been watching them now for a while as well, in the hope that they were going to nest, but so far I've watched them that they're always together. The moment that you see the female not being with the male, then you know that she's sitting on the nest. And she barely leaves that nest for more than 20 to 30 minutes at a time per day. And the rest of the time she will sit there and incubate the eggs. And that takes roughly a month before those eggs hatch. I also find it pretty fascinating when they do hatch. I've seen it only a few times in my life where the female will start calling, and those little chicks will jump down towards the ground, and they'll follow mom straight towards the water and never return back to that nest. Many of the duck species which we have in South Africa actually has very limited material that they use for nesting. Sometimes just a few feathers that they might pluck out and put onto the ground, but they generally do it in the scrape. One of the interesting nest behaviors that I also find is a species which we find in the arid western half, which is known as the South African shelduck. So for those of you that are familiar with a property called Tswalu and Kalahari, we often find shelducks over there. They will actually use burrows, and especially aardvark burrows, as nesting sites. And once again, once the chicks has hatched, then they'll move away from the nest and straight towards water. Hopefully with the rain and more rain coming in, we might find a few other duck species coming into the area very soon. Good afternoon, Momo, and welcome to the show. And with your question, where do Egyptian geese get the name from? It comes from the fact that they used to occur in Egypt. However, they're no longer found there. So if you go and look at a number of pictures of hieroglyphics, you'll often see Egyptian geese being one of those animals depicted on the hieroglyphics. We also see hippopotamus as one, jackals as another one, and some birds of prey. It's most likely a peregrine falcon or a lanner falcon that they might be portraying in those pictures as well. We also find it quite interesting that these birds were placed inside the tombs of pharaohs. So if you look at some of the some of the finds inside those tombs, would include animals such as Egyptian geese, sacred ibis, a number of different other ibis species, which is also extinct in Egypt, and then a number of different cats and dog species such as jackals that would be included in there. We also find that often those animals that were placed in those tombs also had a small food particle placed in their mouth, which was there for providing them with some food of energy into the afterlife that they entered. And the idea why they were placed there was that the pharaoh or the person could hunt them in the afterlife as a source of food. Some of the other animal species which we find that is associated with hieroglyphics and also a number of ancient Egyptian beliefs is hippopotamus. And with hippopotamus, they were actually seen as fertility dainties. And quite often with the flooding of the Nile, a young lady would be offered as a sacrifice and to this fertility dainty. But what doesn't make sense for me, because I assume that crocodiles would have actually been the ones that have taken her. And there's another god that we find in Egyptian culture, which is Sobek, the crocodile god. Other character of Egyptian culture is jackals, which is Anubis, which I also find particularly interesting. And we find jackals often associated with death or carcasses. And in ancient Egypt, they were also associated with death. And they were believed to actually lure the spirits of people that died into the afterlife. One of the things that we've just noticed in the last half an hour, how quickly the clouds have come in. That's actually creating a few very dramatic images in the backdrop here of the sky. I'm just going to put the camera on there for a short while and let you enjoy the landscape and a little bit of peace and quiet. Well, before we move off, we're going to spend a little bit more time over here. We would like to link you into the Eco Training Pridens promo, which is a prize which you can win. Just simply go into WildEarth Explorer, join and register, and come and spend some time with us out here. Hopefully we'll get the opportunity to share quite a bit of knowledge with you on birds, tracks, and a number of other aspects, which might even include things such as weather as well as astronomy.
If you are a Wild Earth explorer, then we are excited to announce that there is another unique prize for you to win. Sign up to be an explorer before the 16th of October 2021, and you and a friend could be heading off to an Eco Training Ranger experience. This 2-night opportunity offers a living and learning adventure where you will combine seeing incredible nature with gaining knowledge on how animals live in the wild. You will approach dangerous game on foot, learn how to track, do some 4x4 driving, and have an exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team behind the scenes on the live show. After each action-packed day, you will relax around the campfire and listen to the nighttime choir of animal sounds before you drift off to sleep. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
So I have made my way down to Chitwa Dam. I'm looking for Marips and Tandi, two of our beautiful leopards. And I'm very, very happy to see some hippos again. I feel like I haven't seen hippos in days. They're actually in a little bit of a semicircle on the island where this fallen tree is. And I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's actually 8 or 9 of them there. They're just coming up at various stages to breathe. There is actually quite a young calf amongst them. I think there are 2, but when they come up I'll have to show you. At the moment they are under the water. You can kind of see one of the teenage ones right on the left there. The small face is actually leaning on the back of an adult hippo. So this is a particularly good spot for hippos to be, where that little island is, because hippos actually are not the best swimmers. And so they need to actually stand on the bottom while they are relaxing and either push up to get air or be standing so that they can just cover themselves below the surface of the water. And so this actually used to be a little island that used to stick out, but with the intense rain over the years, it's now underwater, and so they're just enjoying some slightly shallower water around the island. I have scanned for the crocodiles. I can't seem to find them, but I am going to try my best to find one. I'm hoping because it started cooling off that we might have a little bit of activity around here. So there are actually 3 different groups of hippos in this dam, 3 different pods. And you'll probably find they've just separated themselves into areas where there might be slightly shallower water, or maybe related hippos closer together. They're all responding to each other. It looked like a male that started calling there first, by far the biggest hippo here. And I'm sure that they were very, very grateful throughout the day today for the water. Leo, you're 12 years old. Thank you so much for your question. Hippos actually don't get wrinkles like we do while they're in the water. And that's because their skin is specially adapted for the water. So it's slightly different in structure to our skin. So when we spend too long in the bath, then we get wrinkly fingers and toes. Hippos actually aren't the same. Their skin is so sensitive, they have a bit of the opposite effect. When they're out of the water, their skin struggles, but when they're in the water, it is back to normal. So it's quite interesting that there is that difference. Hippo's skin is very, very sensitive. So that one right on the left, you can kind of see its head and its back a little bit. It's actually lying on top of an adult. It's a youngster. And it's lying on top of an adult so that it can relax, because it's too short to reach the island underwater. So it relies on staying on mom's back, and that is a very common thing for young hippos to do. At a newborn age, a hippo can only hold its breath for maybe 40 seconds. So it becomes very important, if you're too small to have your nose sticking out while you're standing, you have to rely on using mom. And so you'd stay on mom's back, she goes under or comes back up, and you can breathe or just push off from her back to get to the surface. Adult hippos will only come up they can come up as frequently as they want to, but they can come up as little as once every 5 minutes if they really want to. They can hold their breath for a very, very long time. So incredibly well adapted. You can hear there are a lot of birds active. There's Egyptian geese, there's water thickneys, some lapwings. Now look, if hippos need to, they'll actually stay in one dam their entire life. This is not unheard of. Particularly females will stay within the kind of natal dam where they were born for the rest of their lives if they can. If they have to move for drought, they'll move, and as soon as there's water, you might find they actually come back to the dam where they have grown up. Males, however, will be slightly different. When they get to the age where they start having a bit more testosterone and showing some maturity, you'll find the dominant male will actually move them off, and they'll have to go and join a separate pod of hippos in another area. And this is the way that naturally in animals you would avoid inbreeding. It's not a massive problem if animals do inbreed because they're a lot stronger than we are genetically. But with time, you don't want that to happen with too many generations. And so it's nature's way of avoiding inbreeding by moving the males off to different pods. This would happen at a few years old because a hippo only lives to about 35 or 40 years old. So anywhere from, I suppose, around 10 years old, maybe even a little younger if it's a big family, males might move off. You can hear a grey-headed bushshrike in the background too. So this dam is actually one of my favorite places because it is so big, because there is a lot of activity going on, a lot of movement, a lot of birds. I can imagine it must be very, very popular with elephants as well, because the water will be cleaner than the water of a small dam. And so then it can really provide a bit cleaner water. It's a really beautiful place to be. Really, really stunning afternoon to be sitting at the dam, exploring what might be around here. I think especially now that it's getting later in the afternoon, this is a good place for predators. Moonbeam, absolutely. Hippos will fall prey to predators, especially during times of drought when they don't have enough water to protect themselves, but also when they're more at risk from movements. You can imagine if you're moving from one dam to another, that might be 10 or 15 or 20 kilometers away. Along the way, you don't have much protection. That being said, hippos are actually quite aggressive out of water. They've got very big tusks that are actually harder than an elephant's tusks. And so they can definitely kill other animals. But unfortunately, if they are dehydrated and they are moving and tired, they will fall prey to predators. That being said, a hippo is always at risk of predation at some point or another, even if they're just out at night feeding away from the dam, even if it's not a drought, because a pride of lions might be able to take a hippo down. A big clan of hyenas might be able to take a hippo down. Humans are always a threat to all animals, so whether there's a drought or not, hippos are always at risk of predation. Just a little bit more so when they have to move further in the drought and are a little bit weaker. So it looks like the dam is becoming more active as time goes on. I can see some impalas coming down in the distance and a lot more birds flying over. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time here and just see what the movements are.
We try to follow them.
At least some impalas coming down to join the party. It's actually a whole herd, and they're very nicely in the golden light at the moment. They're just approaching the bank, so we're going to see if we can get a shot of that as they start drinking next to the Egyptian geese. Let's just have a listen and watch as the herd comes down slowly and very cautiously to have a little bit of an evening drink after such a hot day. How beautiful is that golden light on their skin and their coat. See, they're grouping together. This is a very natural reaction to the risk of predation. If there's a crocodile and there's 5 impalas, you've only got a 1 in 5 chance of being the one that it gets. You can see they don't drink for long. It's a very quick drink and then they leave. And the rest of the herd is making their way down very slowly. Safety in numbers, folks. Safety in numbers. One of the most important lessons as an antelope or a prey species in the bush. And how special to be able to watch them come down and drink.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. At the moment, we're still at the dam, just waiting to see if anything is going to come in. Those of you that have just joined us, the wind has now started picking up, which made us decide that we're rather going to hang around here and to go out about on a walk, as wind can become a bit of a problem in terms of approaching animals, as they can't smell us, and sometimes we by accidentally walk into them. Meanwhile, there's a beautiful sky there, the dramatic sky at the back, which we can have a look at. I'm not going to say much, as there's not much going on around the waterhole at the moment. If something does come on, then I'll tell you a little bit more. Or if there's anybody that has any questions, you're more than welcome to ask us a few questions. Well, we're going to hang around here a little bit longer. Let's go and see what Tristan is up to.
We've come to Treehouse just to see if anything maybe popped out. I had tracks for male and female leopard directly south of here this morning going into Little Gowrie, so I thought on the off chance maybe that they came back. You never know, maybe they'd come for a drink at this time of the day. Instead, we found what they like to eat. I mean, this is what they like to eat, hey, Morgan? Impalas. I was about to say impalas don't eat leopards, but I remembered what I was actually saying. And I got a bit distracted there. Sorry, everybody. But we got a little herd of impala that had just come down to quench their thirst. So yeah, alas, no sign of those cats. I think those tracks that I had this morning was for Shadulu coming back out of Djuma after her little jaunt up to the north there. And the other track looked quite big. So maybe Mulawati coming southwards. But it's like the perfect setup now at Treehouse Dam. You've got prey animals. The sun that's going down, it's cooled right down. It's starting to get a little bit more dingy out here. It's just perfect for a leopard to kind of move in and be very effective at hunting and finding what it needs. It's worth just sitting here a little bit and listening. It's also a good time of day just to stop and listen. This is the time of day where you hear a sawing leopard or, pick up an alarm call. So I'll just sit quietly. It's been so long since I've actually found a leopard with alarm calls, so I can't even remember the last time I heard impalas alarming and a leopard was there. And more kudu and Nyala making noise than impalas. Peaceful here this afternoon though. I've actually been quite lucky at the dams. There's been a fair amount of activity at each one. Treehouse hasn't obviously produced what Twin Dams did this afternoon, but it's been an afternoon of just really sitting around water, and we've been well rewarded for it. I mean, I know that we haven't had a cat on, and that's also not always the be-all and end-all. I as much as I love spending time with leopards, it's nice sometimes just to enjoy what you get given, and not stress too much about things. So yeah, enjoying that we've had a good afternoon. We haven't driven very much at all. Morgan and I, we've kept it pretty local, and it's worked in our favour. We've had good diversity and nice behaviour, so it's been a good afternoon all round. It's also nice now that it feels like we're not being baked anymore. Amazing, this dam is dropping quickly. Green pearl, if we're talking here in this area, antelope species that's the smallest in the Kruger area is a Sharp's Gracebok, and the largest is an eland of the antelopes. So yeah, but in the Sabi Sands we don't see Sharp's Gracebok or eland, so this largest here in the Sabi Sands would be Steenbok and probably kudu, big male kudu. They every now and then sable come in, and they're quite similar in size, but yeah, that's more on the eastern side, so in Koro, Torchwood, Mala, and I think probably the most constant of them all is Mala. They get a herd that rolls through there a lot, so yeah, nice to see some banded groundlings. Morgan, should we challenge you to filming dragonflies? There's one that's just here. These guys are here throughout the year. It's going to be soon when the rains come, and we're going to start to see a lot more dragonflies around, and be interesting to see this year if we get an increase in dragonflies, if we get more different species. Last year was pretty good. We had some interesting ones that came through, and good numbers of them too, so I'm hoping that we're going to get the same this year, and maybe, like I say, even some different species. If we get good rain, then we might actually get some different species coming through. There goes little banded groundlings. You'll see they perch on these little sticks, fly off, and then come back, perch, fly off, come back and perch again. And they'll be dotted all along the edge of this little water point. Those are the males, are the ones with the big black bars on them. Do you see there? Alright, like I was saying, it's just that time of day where the sun's coming down, so it sounds like Tess has got a beautiful view of it. Let's send you across to her.
So I am just admiring an absolutely breathtaking sunset. It's a little early, but you can see the cloud bank is coming up, and so it's made for a very dramatic skyline here at the dam. And I think it's going to get darker a lot earlier than we expected it. How beautiful are those colors with the clouds. Let's just take in the sunset for a little bit and listen to the birds around here at the dam. There's a wealth of them. Just absolutely gorgeous moment to be out here. I love how those colors are changing to all the purple hues now with just the golden highlights. Absolutely stunning. I'm honestly blown away by how beautiful it is right now. The wind has all but disappeared. It is a perfect evening out. And I'm sitting next to a beautiful dam with impalas coming and going, Egyptian geese moving around, and a sunset that is fit to reset everything from any day. I love the sound of water thickenings. So it's kind of moments like this where a lot can happen from a little bit of quiet time. And it's always so important to take time like this where you are just taking in what's around you, but at the same time listening to what's around you. Because a lot can come from a quiet moment. I do particularly enjoy the sounds of the hippos in the background too. So as I watch the last little golden rays coming through the gaps in the cloud there, I think I'm going to spend my time listening to these hippos, and then I'll move on and see if I can find a last-minute leopard.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, then we are excited to announce that there is another unique prize for you to win. Sign up to be an explorer before the 16th of October 2021, and you and a friend could be heading off to an eco-training ranger experience. This 2-night opportunity offers a living and learning adventure where you will combine seeing incredible nature with gaining knowledge on how animals live in the wild. You will approach dangerous game on foot, learn how to track, do some 4x4 driving, and have an exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team behind the scenes on the live show. After each action-packed day, you will relax around the campfire and listen to the nighttime choir of animal sounds before you drift off to sleep. WildEarth explorers, it's in your nature.
I think sometimes you need just to listen. So it's a kind of taking out all that other spirit and bring back wilderness and healthy bushwalk and trek and sign. I'm sure I'm good at that. I spend most of my time on the ground since I was a young boy, so I think I'm good with that. Actually, I'm not much nervous of any category. Just take it as it is. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on what the judges are looking at. So chances are 50-50 on my side. I'm not... Obviously, when you go for a competition, you say you win.
You are cheeky. That was a brave decision. Amber Eyes is... Oh. That is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Well, Welcome back on Bushwalk. The birds that we're just sitting watching is green woodupus, and it seems they're all just flying off. Normally they're quite large groups of 6 to 12 birds and they're incredibly noisy. And one of the names for them in African culture is Shlekabafazi, which means chattering old ladies. And that's their way of communicating with one another while they're flying about. So they share information about food, potential dangers, as well as that they maintain group cohesion while they are calling. So over the last few days of actually watching them as they go towards that tree, and it seems that there's a nest site there, and I can just see through the binoculars a thin little slit inside the tree of a natural rot hole. And it's very likely that they've got some chicks there. The only time that you see birds coming to a hole like that and passing food and coming with food items to a nest is when there's young. Generally, they will consume their food on site, rather than have a risk of somebody taking your food away. So quite often these birds are confused with scimitar bulls, and how they differ. Scimitar bulls are much smaller, they've got black beaks, black feet, and they're in very small groups compared to the green woodupus, which has got red balls, red legs, and are much larger and much more of a green iridescent color. There is something that I do find quite interesting that these birds share, and this is a bacteria that they have in their preen gland, and they use this as a chemical defense against potential predators, but they also foul their little ones with that secretion to make them stink, so that predators don't really want to eat them. There's a few other things that I do find interesting about the woodupus as well, is that the females actually have a shorter bill length compared to the males. And the reason why is that they're not directly competing with one another. This is also a trait that we see in a number of wading species of birds, such as plovers, that need to probe in mud to prevent the male and female competing for the same food source. So the strategy behind that is, if you don't compete for the same food source, you can actually spend less energy foraging and therefore have to cover less ground in terms of covering a territory and protecting a territory from other groups of woodupus trying to come into that area. Good afternoon, Anderson, and welcome to the show. With regards to that question, if a tree is dead, it's dead. Unfortunately, it can't be revived. Once the bark is off a tree, it doesn't have the ability to transport nutrients and minerals up towards the branches to provide to the leaves. But what we do have quite interesting in this area is a tree which is known as a corkwood, and in Afrikaans we call it a kanniedood, which means cannot die. Quite often when those trees are being pushed over by elephants, they will actually just start resprouting. And quite a few of the different tree species that are related to it, you can just plant a few of those into a side of the field and it will start forming a natural hedge without actually having, and it will just naturally coppice. Also a very soft wood with the corkwoods. It's also one of my favorite trees for making base plates. I actually haven't done that for a long time, and I think it's time that I need to go and find myself one again, and that we can make a base plate and find ourselves a friction stick that we can make fire on one of the shows. Well, as we're losing light now, we're going to start heading back to our vehicle, which is still quite a little bit of a distance to cover. We hope you all have a lovely evening and enjoy the rest of the show.
So I am bumbling along. I have left Chitwa Dam And I'm actually driving along some of the drainage lines here coming up or coming north from the dam, because this is where my roops was yesterday and today, and Thandi was in the area as well. So I'm just giving it a nice check now that it's cool enough for the cats to be moving. Taking it nice and slow, looking for tracks, checking the trees, looking for any immediate signs like impalas staring, birds alarm calling, anything like that. Just giving it a good once over. I would be very, very happy to end off on a little last minute leopard. Would make my day. And my ribs especially, he's so relaxed, and so he's one of those leopards where sometimes you drive past and he hides a little and then you stop and he pops his head up and looks at you. And other times he's just lying out in the open, just waiting for you to happen upon him like the king. He's a very entertaining leopard. So on my left hand side is actually where he was seen this morning. There do seem to be some very relaxed impalas around here though, so I don't think that he is right here, although knowing him he could be stalking them. Marips is famous for that. How exciting would it be to kind of just turn the corner and there's Marips lying there? I would love that. Oh, actually I'd love him in a tree. I take that back, I would like him to be in a tree. Since I'm placing tall orders, I might as well make it a very tall order. I'm actually very happy that it doesn't work like that, that you actually have to look for things and try.
I'm living this my favorite word.
Michelle, a last minute leopard is the best thing that you could ask. Actually no, second best. Best thing you could ask for is last minute wild dogs. But yes, last minute leopard is what I'm going for tonight. That would be so cool. Right, so I'm actually approaching the fire break, which is a great area for all of the predators at this time, because there's a lot of fresh growth and there's not a lot of brush left. It means that your approach is kind of softer as opposed to the dry areas with lots of overgrown dry grass. But at the same time, the new growth is kind of bringing in impalas, Steenbok, duiker, a lot of good yummy prey species for them. So I'm definitely hoping that that is the case along the fire break. So I'm actually now turning onto the eastern boundary of Djuma, called cheetah cutline. I'm hoping that today it's leopard cutline. And I'm actually just going to do a little bit of a loop back through Djuma, just along the drainage lines here where he might have crossed now that it's a bit cooler. There were actually tracks of him crossing into Djuma from Chitwa and then back to Chitwa. I haven't seen any tracks of him coming over yet, but we will see. Maybe we just missed them. What a perfect evening for a leopard. I can imagine a leopard's home range and territory in winter is a lot bigger than it would have to be in summer because of the shortage of water. So it'd be interesting to see how it changes over now from winter going into summer, now that we're in the spring interim. I'm going to keep checking though. Hopefully I manage to bump into Thandi or Marips. Wish me luck.
Well, hopefully you'll bump into one of them. I'm sure they're somewhere around Chitwa, Gowrie Main, somewhere there. They will have made their way towards some water at some point, given how hot it is. We're still at Treehouse Dam, and we're just chilling, listening, seeing maybe what comes our way. It's a beautiful, beautiful time of the evening to just sit and take it easy. You never know at this time what you're going to pick up. You could hear a leopard sawing, you could hear alarm calls, you could hear lions roaring, so worth sometimes just actually sit stationary rather than try to rush around. We know at this time of the year these become central points for animals, and so when it gets cooler, it's a good place just to sit and listen for a little bit. Like I said, there was tracks around here this morning, so not the worst idea. But the impalas have moved off, which is pretty typical for them. They don't stick around the dams too much. They just come, drink, and go. Most antelope are like that. They don't want to be caught at the waterhole, so they kind of do their thing, get what they need, and then they head out. But what you will see now is that every now and then the water surface is disturbed, and you'll get these ripples that will come up. So it's catfish. They start to get very active at this time of the day and into the night. And so what they're doing at the moment is they're breathing air. So they come up to the surface and you see them like boiling on the surface. Often that's you'll even see the whiskers coming out and them kind of gulping air and then going back under. So there are lots of those that are doing that, and they're starting to get big. You know, we had, obviously, this was completely dry 2 years ago. So 2 good seasons of rain has led to a situation where the catfish have grown nicely. And there's some actually fairly large ones, even though it's not a very big water hole. There's some decent sized catfish that are actually in the dam at the moment. I must admit, I do love this time of the day. In terms of game drive, really enjoy the morning because of the opportunity to track and the way it's kind of set up. It's a situation where you know you have this unknown, so driving around is very interesting in the mornings because you constantly looking for sign from the night before that you can potentially follow. It's not so common in the afternoons, particularly as we go into summer, because the animals aren't moving around nearly as much as they do overnight. The trackable animals. But this time of the day, just from a sheer kind of enjoyment factor, there's something about just sitting quietly and listening to the sounds as the day starts to wind to an end, particularly a hot day. You can just kind of get this crescendo of bird calls, and then it drops off into very, very quiet, and the wind and everything just drops for 2 seconds, and it just feels like it's completely still, and then it kicks back up again as the nocturnals start to come out. And you know, this time of the year we don't have like crazy numbers of insects yet, and frogs, so the nocturnal sounds now are quite slow to get started, so you don't get that crossover like you do in summer. Like now in summer you would already have frogs starting to go and insects calling, and it would be still quite loud, but now it just gets completely silent for a bit, and it's that stillness and that calmness at the end of the day that is really, really nice to enjoy. That's why a lot of people stop at this time of the day when they do these game drives in these private reserves. Kind of stop and get everybody to stretch their legs and have a apple juice or water or whatever it is that they like. And that allows them to, you know, just kind of get a bit more of a sense of connecting with nature. I think, you know, in the modern world that we live in, sometimes we get very, very, very kind of caught up in, you know, phones and pictures, and you see it when people come on game drives. They constantly are looking to get photos, and sometimes they don't even actually experience it. And I think when you stop at this time of the day and you get everyone off the car, there's that moment where, you know, people put the phones down and just actually absorb nature for what it is, and it's a way that they can actually kind of disconnect from their normal life and feel as though they're living something a little bit different, which is really cool. So always a fan of a quiet moment in the afternoons. My problem is that I get FOMO quite badly in the afternoons. When it's golden light, I want to be somewhere and see things rather than stop in for drinks, which is a bad trait. Some people don't like it, but some do. It just depends on who you are. Okay, well, we'll probably carry on shortly. We'll just sit here for maybe another 3 or 4 minutes and see what we can find and see if anything pops out at the dam.
Waterholes are definitely the place to be today. I love it. I'm on a little bumble. I'm doing a road called Leadwood Road. So I've done a little bit of cheetah cut line of the east. Now I'm doing the very, very bumpy Leadwood Road back down to the southern boundary to cut across the drainage lines where Thandi and Maribs might be. So I'm checking very slowly because, one, the road is very bumpy, and if I go any faster, poor old Wendy might break, as well as me and Paul. But two, I just don't want to miss any signs of a leopard in this thicket. It is very, very, very thick here. The grass, if it was standing upright, would probably be about up to my hips or belly button. Definitely the right time for a leopard or any of the predators to come out, actually. The sun has set, it's nice and cool. Well, cooler than it was. Not that cool. Still quite warm. But the wind has dropped and it is just perfect out. Definitely the perfect time to be out looking for fresh predator tracks. Really hope I find some. Would be amazing to have a little last minute predator. I think it's going to be my ribs.
Well, we just had a car come past. We had a little chat to them quickly. That's why we're still at the dam, just figuring out what's going on. It seems as though it's been very quiet on Djuma this afternoon. Bar lots of elephant, there hasn't been a lot else going on. The dogs are far north on Buffelshoek and still heading north, so it looks like they're heading towards Manyeleti side. And it sounds like there's some lions right up in the north, kind of corner of Kruger Park, Buffelshoek and Manyeleti, that area. So I don't know which lines they are, maybe Torchwoods, they like to be up that side. So yeah. But no sounds, no real leads to work with now. What I'm going to do is I think we're going to try and head along the western boundary of the reserve and see if we get lucky with a Kara or a tortoise pan. I mean, Shidulu, I'm pretty sure, is the one that went south this morning here. So I don't think it will be her. But yeah, let's see what we can find. I'll try and kind of pick up something that side. Alrighty, let me just reverse from here. Let's go and have a little adventure, Morgan. Always. I know. We're adventurous people, you and I. We are. Which road should we take, Morgan? Should we go just Gary Main Triple M?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Oliver, lion prides in the Sabi sands. I haven't actually seen the census of late, but let's think. We've got Torchwood, Talamati, potentially Mbali, Shimongwe, Inkahuma. Somebody can list these and count them for me. Inkahuma, Kambula and Sevu pride, Mangen, Ottawa, Southern Pride, Styx Pride, Sand River Pride, and whom else am I missing? I feel like I'm missing an important one. Salala. That's most of the prides I can think of, and then male coalitions. Obviously, that's a whole different thing. But that's as far as I can think. I'm probably missing a couple in all of that. But I haven't seen this year's census yet, so I don't know what the numbers are on leopard or lions. I don't actually know if they've published them or if I just missed it. I'll ask the Sabi Sands guys to see if they've done it. But yeah, I think that's the right number. I mean, I've got actually... Hold on a second. Let me just quickly check something. I have the Panthera report, I think, and that should tell me. Of course, now it needs to try and download, and I don't have signal. And that will tell me exactly how many are on it. Alrighty, here we go. Male coalitions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 coalitions. And prides, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Sure, I didn't get one wrong. I got them all. It's just only the 13th pride was an unknown pride. So, nice, not bad, eh? Jeez. I don't know if there'll be many people that will know all 12 prides of the Sabi Sands and seen all 12 this year. I've been very fortunate. I've seen all of them, which is pretty crazy. You don't always get lucky like that. Every single pride in the Sabi Sands. It's only because I've traveled the Sabi Sands a bit. I've been down in the south at Kirkman's. I was in the west for a while, central parts. So yeah, I've been lucky. But those prides, even though we've got 12 now, or 13 with the unknown pride, even though we've got now, I think we're about to see an increase in that, because I think we're going to see, eventually we're going to see a split in the Kambula pride or in Sevu pride. So those sub-adults from there are probably going to split off, and they might even split into 3, given how many there are. There's 9 males in that pride. It's amazing, which is very, very cool. And then you've got the Inkahumas and Talamatis that I think might split too. So maybe we'll get 2 prides out of there, which will make a serious number of lion prides for a reserve that's 60-odd thousand hectares if you include Nyala into it. Good, let's carry on. Let's go check this western boundary. Let's see, maybe we're lucky. We haven't driven much here the last few days. We are well overdue a tortoise pan sighting. So let's head that side.
Very impressive, Tristan. You do have an excellent memory with the cats and the dogs. Unreal. Very, very impressive to see all those lion prides. So I'm just watching some water thickneys at the dam. They seem to be moving around near the water's edge. I'm at twin dams now, so I'm actually still looking for Marips and Tundi. I briefly saw a hyena moving past here, possibly the same one that we saw earlier, Heart. And so I'm just having a look to see if maybe the hyena picked up on something that I didn't. You can see how well camouflaged that thickney is. Very, very, very good, especially for this muddy bank where you can see all of the footprints of other animals that have come down there. If we hadn't have seen it moving, maybe we wouldn't have noticed it. You can also hear a lot of arrow-marked babblers making quite a noise in the background. Isn't it just so beautiful here this evening? I'm taking the time while we're here to listen for any alarm calling, anything that might indicate that a leopard is around. And I'm thinking that they might actually come towards this dam at some point during the night, because this is the closest water source to where they were last seen. And it has been an incredibly hot day, so I'm sure they must both be thirsty. Apologies. I'm very clumsy, it seems. Dropping my water bottle. I got quite the fright from myself there, so I do apologize. I know you must have gotten a fright as well. Amplified in the microphone. All of a sudden the birds are more quiet. Coast Cider, it's actually quite difficult to say how many kilometers we would drive in a day. I think it depends on the sightings at the time. I know when I was at Ngala, sometimes in a day we used to do up to 50 kilometers because it's a 15,000 hectare reserve. Djuma is quite a bit smaller, but there are a lot of roads. So if you've got a day where you're not having a lot of sightings, so you're moving and looking and tracking and searching, I suppose maybe in a drive, a maximum I'd say up to 20 kilometers. Maybe average a bit less. Tristan would probably be a better person to give you an accurate number. I've only been here for 10 days, so the roads feel very short to me. And I probably overestimated that because I have a bad habit of overestimating things. But on a day where you don't have many sightings, sometimes you might not even move 3-4 kilometers in a whole day if there are sightings that are not moving. So for example, a pride of lions that's lying around, or a leopard on a carcass, and they might be close to each other, so you might not need to go far at all. I think it just depends on the day. Very interesting question though, because it feels like it's nothing when you're out here, but then when you actually have a look at it, it's probably a lot more than you think. It's only the arrow-marked babblers that I can still hear. I have been looking around and I can't see the hyena coming back. Ruth, yes, it is a very, very peaceful scene and very easy to fall in love with in that sense, because it's not often that you do actually get to just take a moment and breathe it in. So it can be very, very refreshing and resetting to do that. So you can see and hear that the wind is picking up again, and this is great for the predators. Absolutely brilliant. It means that there is a great chance of hunting. Wow. Wow, it's just picked up a gust out of nowhere. This wind is very strange. It's literally just started gusting out of nowhere. A massive wind. I think I'm going to actually stick around for just a minute or two longer and just see if anything comes down now that the wind has picked up.
I turned to Shaw and I saw that she had this panicked look on her face. Either she was afraid that something had happened or she was afraid that she was going to miss out on something. But instead of her missing out on those lions, we drove up next to them and I switched off the car so that she could hear what was going on. Now, these lions had killed a kuru, and she could hear these two cubs, both 8 months old at the time, busy pushing and shoving each other out the way to get to the best parts of the meat. And the mom was lying just to the side in the shade. Now, I'd known that before losing her sight, Sean probably knew what a lion looked like. But I really wanted her to know what this lion looked like. So for the first time in my guiding career, I started to describe to someone what a lion looked like. And I found that, I started to notice things in that lion that I'd never seen before.
Oh, it's going to be in trouble now. Oh, this is unbelievable stuff. Here comes a hippo in too. Go, Impala. There's a hippo coming in. I can't believe what we're seeing here. This is what we normally see in East Africa. It's all over. Hippo leaping at the crocodile now. Everything's gone underwater.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Right, so at the moment, I feel like I'm being blown off of the dam wall. My hat is actually struggling to stay on. I don't know where this wind came from. All I know is it's gusted up out of nowhere, and I think it's bringing the rain with it, which is amazing news for the animals. It's amazing news for the predators in particular. They'll be moving around, they'll be hunting, using the wind and the cool weather to their advantage. For the herbivores, they'll be happy that the rain is coming, but nervous about the wind. So it's definitely going to be an interesting night. I'd be very interested to see how the predators move tonight and tomorrow based on this wind that's come up out of nowhere. It was such a perfect evening, and all of a sudden it is quite ridiculous. My hat is quite literally blowing off my head. Alright, so I don't see anything coming towards the dam, so I think what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to start heading up towards the drainage lines and just check along there slowly, because you never know what is going to pop up, and especially now with this wind, there might be animals concentrating in the drainage lines where it might be a smidgen more sheltered than right up on top of the dam wall, very exposed. But I'm still hoping that I find a predator. I'm hoping for a leopard or some wild dogs if they want to surprise me. This wind came up out of nowhere. I'm still in shock. So I know we are due to get quite a lot of rain towards the end of this week. I think this is the start of the wind bringing it in. So wildcats will hunt at night. They are nocturnal species, just like leopards. They actually almost look like a very, very small version of a mixture of a leopard and a house cat. They're very, very good at hunting because they are small and they're mostly solitary. They are very good at hunting, and so they actually come out at night, anytime from just after sunset. Even now you might be lucky and see one, but it'll work the same with all of the smaller cats. So civets, African wildcats, servals, caracals, black-footed cats, they'll all come out at night to hunt. That's the best time for a predator to be out and about. I have been very lucky. I have seen a few African wildcats. I have seen a few one black-footed cat. I have seen caracal, I've seen serval in the wild, I've seen many civets. So I'm very, very happy with my predator list. It's growing and seems to be quite constant, which is amazing. It's definitely getting darker. We'll have to go over into infrareds soon, I'm sure. Alright, so now what I'm trying to focus on is really just as I'm driving towards the drainage lines. I know leopards might be moving, so I'm looking for the white on the bottom of the tail, the white on the backs of the ears. Any alarm calls, any impalas or kudus staring in a particular direction, especially close to these drainage lines. The best cover for a leopard to be moving. I believe Tundi was in the drainage line meters away. That was this morning. Coming up. So you can imagine when you are a leopard and you're on the edge of a drainage line, the best element of surprise is actually coming up from the drainage line, which is where the tall trees are, coming up this way towards this grassy area in front. And in the grassy area you might find things like impalas, Steenbok, duiker. So anywhere that there's a nice bank with an openish area on the top, you want to actually really concentrate on looking in those areas, because it's a great opportunity for leopards to be hunting. So I'm definitely going to take a little bit of time to listen, to look carefully for any little flashes of white. Just because you can never be too careful when you are looking for a leopard. It's actually amazing, there's hardly any wind in this little patch. So in this little patch here, the breeze is much, much, much lower. So I can actually hear a little better. Alright, we have switched over into infrared. The light has dropped quite substantially. And you can see how thick the bush is here. It is incredibly thick, and this is the perfect place for a leopard to be. I'd actually love to know how close Thandi and my roots are at the moment. Wherever they are, I'd love to know if they're still close together. I can hear a few birds chattering away in the drainage line. And Nadia, to become a naturalist, you have to have quite a keen interest and passion in nature and animals. I think the story is slightly different for every person for how they ended up here. But most naturalists are field guides, and there are specific qualifications you would need to get through if you're in South Africa, FGASA. So that's the Field Guiding Association of Southern Africa. And you can find various training providers that offer courses in FGASA qualifications and training to be a naturalist out in the bush. If you're somebody that just actually enjoys being out in nature, you can find different routes to get you. I actually started off doing science and research and decided that this was the better life for me. So I changed over and did some training with FGASA and andBeyond. But there's different routes to get you. I think most naturalists, though, are FGASA qualified guides. And so we just love the bush, and I think everyone's story was different getting here. For me, it was family holidays every single year to the Kruger Park in winter. And having a family who really appreciated it, and having the family time, I think more than anything, made an even bigger impression on why the bush was special to me. And then once I started learning the animals and the environment, I really just fell in love with it. From there, I knew I was going to work with animals from very, very young. Before I was 10 years old, I knew I was going to work with animals, particularly wildlife, and particularly South African wildlife. I have a very soft spot, very, very soft spot for this. I think it's something that ignited as a passion very early on, and I just decided, once I was done with my honours in science, I decided to move over to this instead of pursuing a master's at the time, so that I could be out in the bush. And I don't regret it for a single day. I think this is the best life I could ever imagine. Right, so I'm hoping that we don't have any issues with our infrared light today. I am going to continue on a little bit and just see if we might bump into anything else moving along this drainage line. I'm actually heading back up towards Vuyatela Dam area, just to see if there's anything that might have come to the central parts as well. Right, I'm going to get going on my bumble again. Alright, let us see what we find tonight. I'm so excited to see what last minute surprises wait for me. So I'm actually kind of hugging the drainage line. This drainage line goes back up towards Vuyatela Dam in the central parts. That drainage line, so it splits into two tributaries on my left and my right. The one on my left actually goes up towards Treehouse Dam. So this is the Molawati drainage line or riverbed, the same one that the famous ghost of Djuma is named after. It's not quite dark enough yet that I want to whip out any extra lights. There is still enough light for me to see. So I'm actually also just checking with the lights that I've got for any reflections in eyes of animals. The wind is actually currently getting stronger. Wendy's doing a little bit of a hopscotch vibe. Sorry. The wind is getting a lot stronger. And so I think the predators are going to be incredibly active tonight. Let's hope. Crossing fingers and toes. I should have braided my hair for good luck. Absolutely brilliant evening. I can see quite a big cloud bank coming in, so I know that the animals are expecting rain to come, and that's going to make them more active tonight. So what I am expecting to happen tonight and tomorrow morning is that, well, actually more tomorrow morning than tonight, we're going to head out in the morning and there are going to be predator tracks everywhere. Even if they aren't moving right now, throughout the night tonight with the cloud buildup, with the wind that is just so strong, the predators are going to be moving. They're anticipating the weather. They've known about it for days. They've been building up to it. And now is the time to use it to your advantage. So I'm pretty sure that in the morning there are going to be tracks all over Djuma, which is really exciting to see who's moved where and just get a better sense of their dynamics at the moment. But at the same time, you know, there's this massive excitement that comes with weather, because you never know what you're going to find. As much as we can't predict what we're going to find on a normal day, on bad weather days, it is just next level in terms of you have no idea what to expect, but you know that it's going to be good. Are servals a rare occurrence in the Sabi sands? Wow. No, actually I wouldn't think they're such a rare occurrence. And that would be because they are smaller than leopards. They look kind of like a very miniature version of a cheetah with tall legs, or very long legs. Because they're solitary, they are actually around. They live in areas just like this with lots of thickets. And so, you know, I would actually think that they would be quite common around here. The difference is their nature is very shy. Their movements are very quick and quiet. And so actually seeing a serval anywhere is actually really tough. So I'm sure there are a lot of servals around here. We just don't see them. We see tracks a lot. We see tracks of a lot of the smaller cats pretty much every day. Whether it's civets or servals or African wildcats, they are definitely around. But it's just so difficult to see them. Also, we're not really generally out between, you know, 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. when they would be most active. Then we will definitely be sleeping. Very bumpy road. Found a little sheltered spot here where there's no wind. Vili, absolutely. Animals can sense when the rain is on its way. It's actually really incredible. They have senses that we couldn't dream of. They can feel the changes in air pressure and moisture in the air. So leopards, for example, use their whiskers a lot for detecting changes in atmospheric pressure and things like that. So they know when rain is coming. Even insects and birds know when rain is coming, so they'll use a combination of their senses. They also seem to have this amazing sixth sense about things, and so they will definitely know when the rain is coming, and then they act accordingly. Just before the rain, they might move and get as much in as they can, for the herbivores anyway, and then during the rain you might find they stick to the thickets a bit more, trying to stay dry and warm, where the predators would actually, as much as they might be active before the rain, they're actually most likely just moving to areas of better prey choice, and then when the rain comes they use that to their advantage for hunting. So it's unbelievable. Elephants in particular are very in tune to changes in weather, and so that's why you've heard, I'm sure, stories of elephants that have saved people when there have been tsunamis and hurricanes and things like that, because they could sense it coming and started moving up to higher ground. Even cows will do that, domestic cows. So it is absolutely incredible how animals react. They've known for days, where we rely on the weather service. I'd actually love to see a genet. I haven't seen a genet in months. Probably about 9 months I haven't seen a genet. I've been away for 7 months at least, so it's not as though I'm just not looking for genets. I have actually been away. But it still feels like a very long time. So I'm actually getting close to the area now of Vuyatela Dam, so it'll be interesting to see what has come down to the dam in this last little 5-minute stretch.
Free diving is the purest way to experience the great African sea forest. Silently gliding through the long kelp fronds allows you to reconnect with nature and explore this enchanted world. Sea Forest is a brand new daily experience coming soon on the WildEarth channel. You will explore an underwater forest live from Cape Town, while a team of naturalists explain what we are seeing.
Like trees in a forest, these kelp provide food and shelter for many, many species.
Magical encounters with shy marine life, crustaceans, sharks, seals, and so much more will all bring a window of calm into an otherwise chaotic world.
Here at the Advanced Rifle Handling Challenge, which is actually lots of challenges in one to gauge the contestants' skills at different distances and different speeds. This is probably the challenge that the contestants are the most nervous about. So let's get them locked and loaded. The competitors are now doing the Hales halt, where they have to run back and forth to a target, turn, take aim, and shoot. And this simulates a chase in a real environment and gets the heart pumping and the blood pressure up. James gave us a demonstration, and the skill involved in this exercise is remarkable.
Goodness, look at its wobbly legs. Oh, I don't believe it. I can't believe we've actually seen it. Oh my goodness. Oh, careful, careful, careful. Oh no. Oh, it's okay, little one. Okay.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Well, we've managed to find some signal. Poetessa's had to hold the show for a little bit, so well done to her. And we're with a herd of impalas on quarantine. This wind has kicked up heavily, So a lot of these animals that will be on quarantine will be very, very unsettled right now. They're going to be hugely alert to what's going on. When wind is blowing like this, it creates a difficult time for them because they can't smell things very well, because the scent is being blown all over the place. And on top of that, they have a very tough time with the hearing side of things. It's constant noise when the wind is blowing. Everything is shifting and moving, and there's even, in terms of vision, there's movement of the grass all the time. And it's why areas like quarantine are so important for animals like impalas, because otherwise at night like this, if they're in thick dense bush, they're going to just be sitting ducks for things like leopard. Leopards will absolutely hammer these guys if they in areas where there's any sort of vegetation around them. And I suspect after the last few days of very hot weather and very, very relaxed evenings, this wind is going to play into the hands of the predators. We haven't seen many animals on a kill the last 4 days. So I'd imagine this is going to play right into the hands of the predators, and they're going to be pretty active tonight. They're going to try their best. It's weird, though, because this kind of wind is generally associated with the change in the weather. And by all accounts, the forecast is that the weather should still be pretty warm tomorrow, and then only change tomorrow evening. And this wind like this is normally a good indicator of change of weather. When you get winds that pick up in the evenings, it normally means the next morning is quite cold and quite sort of overcast. So we'll just have to see what happens tomorrow morning. Maybe it's arrived a little bit earlier than they expected, and we're going to get a very cool day tomorrow. But yeah, it certainly is hugely windy. I'm sure you can see it, and you can see with the impalas even though some of them are feeding, you see how a lot of them have got their heads up, they're looking, they're turning. They're going to bunch very tightly together. They're going to try and keep themselves in very small groups, not wander too far from one another. And when they are there, what they're going to do is that they're going to kind of put bums all together, and a lot of individuals facing outwards, making sure that they are keeping in mind what's going on around them. Shame. It must be horrible to be one of these guys in this kind of darkness and this kind of weather. I don't know if you can even see the tree on the right there. It's got a huge amount of leaves moving. Gaurav, do I get scared to go into the bush at night? Hey? Don't lie, Morgan. If you're around, then we've got your little night light, so we'll be okay. Gaurav, so no, not really. In the car, absolutely not at all. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. But walking around is a whole different story. If you want to walk around at night, that's taking a chance. And you can get yourself hurt like that pretty quickly. But yeah, in a car, no, not at all. The only time I've ever been fairly nervous in a vehicle at night is when I've been in the migration. The migration is a pretty scary thing to be in at night, because you get these stampeding herds and you can't see what's going on, and it's just pretty uncomfortable at times. So yeah, but otherwise, no. The nighttime, funny enough, in a vehicle, especially in a place like this, these animals have all become so used to us that they're not worried about us, and you moving around means that you can, get through without too much worry. The only thing you would be careful of is potentially bumping into elephants at night. But even then, if you just drive slowly and respectfully and with your lights on, you generally won't get yourself into too much of a problem, and you should be okay. So yeah. I don't know if you guys can hear over the wind, but there's some lapwings that just started to alarm call like they were disturbed. I can see more impalas in that direction of where they were calling from. And so it's not, maybe the impalas just ran through and disrupted them. Could also be something similar, something small like a genet or a white-tailed mongoose. The impalas seem all, yeah, down that way. You did see a wildebeest as well. Oh, wow. Morgan, don't outdo yourself. So in the distance away from where we are now, it seems like a little pocket of wildebeest. But you see the impalas will have popped their heads up. Well, not these ones, but some of the ones will have popped their heads up just to listen to those lapwings. Lapwings can sometimes give away a predator, so if lions or leopard were to come onto this clearing, you'd be able to hear them there. Shame, guys. I'm sorry that you're going to have a rough night out here. You know, you feel sorry for them. You think to yourself, well, I'm going to go get into bed and it's going to be all great and I'm going to have 4 walls around me and I won't have to worry about this. But these poor guys have got to sit on this open clearing getting battered by the wind, which, let's be honest, no one likes to be battered by the wind. And then not only that, but accompanying all the wind is going to be spotted cats and tawny-coloured cats and marauding spotted hyenas. We know dogs are in the area, and if it's bright enough and we don't get any clouds and the moon comes up a bit, they can even sometimes be quite busy at night. So, you know, it's going to be tough times for these guys. Morgan, you're lucky you're not an impala. No nightlight for impalas, buddy. Eh? No light at all. Yeah, I know. What would you like to be? Would you ever want to be an impala for a night, just to feel what it's like?
Oh, again, I'll go with hardy-dar.
Hardy-dar again, as always.
Yeah.
You know, maybe just to experience it, but no, impala, just to see what it's like and to see what they feel and how much anxiety they have. But I feel like you would be that guy that would get hit by the leopard because you like everything bad happens to you all the time.
I'd be chasing the leopard and hit a tree.
Exactly, you'd be trying to get away from the leopard and run straight into a tree. That's exactly what would happen with Morgan. Poor Morgan has had all the bad luck in the last few weeks, from the car catching fire to almost falling off to all kinds of other weird and multiple cups of coffee that have gone down the drain, I'm afraid. Down your leg, exactly. 3rd-degree burns on both legs thanks to coffee stains, coffee spills. He's even got a Picasso painting on the back of Rusty here on the seats from his coffee. Yes, you do. It's like finger painting in the mornings. He spills so much coffee.
It also gets caught in my shoe.
Goes into your shoes. Okay, fair enough. Anyway, it's that time of the day, guys. We're going to say goodnight. It's descending into absolute nonsense, probably a good thing. I hope that you guys had a good afternoon with us and enjoyed all the ellies and just the general kind of water point behavior of the animals, and hopefully you had a bit of a laugh at times too. From all of us, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning on our sunrise safari.